What is up, RotoGrinders? Happy Thanksgiving Eve. It is week 13, lucky number 13. As always, the Pick Six Show. John Daigle established the run. He's in those season-long streets. He'll tell you who to play, who to put on your stash on your bench for one injury away. He makes a mean sweet potato pie, is my understanding. Maybe he'll delve into that as well. Maybe he'll, if he's kind enough, maybe he'll drop the directions and the ingredients in the YouTube. Who knows? We shall see. Also, we have Rich Hribar, Sharp Football Analysis, the worksheet. A lot of the worksheet stuff I saw was free. What is it? All the Thanksgiving stuff and Black Friday? Is that correct, Rich?
Yeah. So if you want to prep and you don't get enough of it on this show, you can go check it out.
Special edition. We always do this the night before Thanksgiving, but we're going to put a timestamp. If you guys, for whatever reason, are listening to this on Friday and you don't want to hear about us talk about, the Thanksgiving slate, go ahead and check the timestamp. You'll get a timestamp. You can jump ahead. And also, I hope you had a good Thanksgiving if you're listening. Hopefully everything was spectacular and everything was good and the family didn't fight and everybody had fun and all that good stuff. And you won some money on the slate that we're going to talk about in just a second. But yeah, our three main games we're going to focus on is the three Thanksgiving games. Then we're going to just shuffle the deck and go right back and talk about the main slate. Not, three games, but we'll just give our favorite plays position by position. That's the best way to cover everything later on in the show. Producer TJ is going to come in. Rob's going to come in from Hometown Ghost Stories, and we're going to be talking a little bit of Tick, Tick, Boom, our movie review. And then I have one to assign going forward for next week. But it was close, actually, Daigle. I think I'm not trying to rub it in, but it was like a point. I think I beat you by like a point, maybe.
Less than a point. It was like 0.7. Threw the Geno doubles with Trey McBride at you. We didn't get the long DK touchdown, so that's what held me up. Also, the Brian Robinson injury, even though he was good chalk in my opinion. But yeah, I made a run at you at the end for sure.
Maybe if Kyler could throw one pass through the force field that Trey McBride has on him apparently in the end
zone. He had him wide open too. He missed him completely. You speak of the season-long streets, by the way, Dean. That's become my least favorite question. Is people asking Kyler Murray, like ROS, Kyler Murray ranking this week? It's like, bro, I don't know. Like, he has 7 lives this year. I have no idea which one we're getting from week to week. I have no idea what to do with Kyler Murray.
But keep playing McBride. He's going to score one. And even if he doesn't score, He still gets there. He still gets there, nonetheless. All right. Let's go ahead and talk about it as far as the three-game slate. The three-game slate on Thanksgiving should be a fun one for sure. I think we have three pretty good games. I don't know. We'll see. We'll make some chicken salad of it.
We got a good bad game.
Yeah. I'm staring at Giants Dallas. So I don't know if I want to call that a good game.
That's 100% be the game that you have to have. There's just LA.
Yeah. Lock is in.
Game. It's like a literal preseason game. Anything could happen.
Yeah. I mean, it's 33% of the slate. We got to talk about it. It's right smack in the middle. As always, like normal qualifiers for this Thanksgiving stuff, one of the best ways, one of the sharpest ways, if you can sneak away from the family or whatever you're doing, but like be alert as far as pivoting off plays, depending on what happened in game 1, depending on what happened in game 2, and that kind of stuff. It's super, super important. All right. Daigle, do you want to think anything that's worth note as far as the overarching 3-gamer or anything that we should say, or shall we just kind of dive in, let it come out organically?
One, a couple listeners have reached out for my turkey recipe, and I did pass it along to them. So feel free to DM me if you would like it. That's your responsibility beginning early tomorrow morning. And then 2, yes, just be open to the late swaps tomorrow, because it seems like, at least from my early testing of the Sims, Caleb Williams is going to be a pretty popular play. And if that's the case, then we can go ahead and shut our laptops for the rest of the afternoon, or at least get some of these swaps in for Dallas Giants. Since Dolphins, Packers, we'll talk about it. At least there are a lot of plays, but it seems like a lot of the plays are also going to be played, whereas there are some off-the-board options for Giants, Cowboys.
You got anything, Rich, or shall we just dive in and talk about game 1?
No, good advice. Late swap saved me last week on FanDuel, for sure. That was a huge one.
What was the move?
Was it Raiders Cowboys last year?
No, I actually just ended up. So like I played Achan and Schoonmaker, and he wasn't like the popular in cash. So I just I was able to swap to Jacobs and just roadblock everyone that I got ahead on. Ooh. So I literally just swapped to the most popular play and roadblocked it and just cruised through cash.
Beautiful. All right.
Schoonmaker ended up not being popular on FanDuel.
Yeah, I don't think he was that popular. I mean, he had some ownership on DK, but I thought he'd be more popular. I guess the cap was not as tight as it has been in recent weeks, so I guess that's the reason why it kind of loosened up a little bit. So you weren't desperate for the 2.5K tight end. Bears, Lions, 48.5 is the total. We have dual revenge, Montgomery revenge, Swift revenge. Amon-Ra, questionable with the knee. We'll see how that. I assume he's playing. I don't know if there's anything out there, but just got to put that in your back pocket and be aware of it, I suppose. But Detroit's got a team total of almost 30 here, Rich. It is the first game of the slate. What John said was correct, at least as far as the stuff I'm running as well. It looks like Caleb Williams, dollar for dollar, just kind of hitting lineups. He's probably going to be the most popular quarterback this week, taking on Detroit here in the Dome. Start wherever you want to start as far as the Lions and the Bears, Rich.
I'll start by reminding everyone that if you would like to be thankful, you may bet Jahmyr Gibbs' longest rush at 16.5 yards right now.
Yeah.
Which you can find it at certain places. I am only allowed to bet 43 American dollars on it, but I put all 43 American
they went to the source. They capped you.
But I put all 43 American dollars on it that I was allowed to put. But it is the internal gift that everyone is thankful for. Hopefully it gets there for everyone on Thanksgiving. But yeah, I guess Gibbs in general is really interesting because we just don't really know. We know Montgomery's going to play, but like how much does he play? How healthy is he, right? And we've seen kind of, Montgomery when he hasn't been fully healthy, like we get that run out, like the end of last game where Gibbs had 12 of 13 touches. He has the potential on a short slate to be a running back that shadow realms the other running backs. So he definitely becomes like an interesting play to potentially go all in on if you want, because this Bears team is 28th in yards per carry allowed to running backs. They've allowed 140.4 scrimmage yards to running backs. That's 22nd in the league. And back-to-back weeks, last week, Aaron Jones got him for 130 and a touchdown and fumbled at the goal line on another one. And then Jacobs the week before got him for 134 and a touchdown. So definitely looking at Jahmyr Gibbs in this first game, especially because he's a dual. He can actually pick up some of the stuff if Amon-Ra is kind of hurt too. So definitely Jahmyr Gibbs. Be thankful.
I think Montgomery sticks around at least long enough to get a touchdown. He's going to get his revenge touchdown. I don't know if that's enough, but I mean, 1 yard line, and typically it is him. Sometimes it's Gibbs, but I think he's the first guy they go to, all things being equal. Is that fair to say, or am I just like trying to build my own narrative that they're going to get him his touchdown if they can? I think.
Yes. This is similar to the Nick Sirianni outlook when Saquon Barkley played the Giants, except not in a childish manner. Dan Campbell just wants to help his guys. So it does seem like this is going to be a situation where Campbell's going to continue putting Montgomery in the best place possible. When the media asked him about it, he even said that even like if he wanted to hold Montgomery out, Montgomery wouldn't let him, knowing he wants to play against his old team. Everyone's aware of the revenge that's happening in this game. And that's how you play against the Bears too, for all the reasons Rich mentioned. That's why I think it's such an interesting spot. It seems like we show up on this show every year saying play Montgomery and Gibbs on Thanksgiving together. That's one unique way to go. And there are, just like every slate we play this year, there are 4 or 5 interesting running backs. So we still have to make the right choice here. But yeah, at ownership, especially the margin that they're showing in difference right now, I still love Montgomery at a salary here.
I just pulled it up here. Montgomery Caesars minus 165 is the best number you can get, but like minus 175 DK, minus 170 on FanDuel.
For a touchdown?
Score. Yeah. So like.
Oh, no. You go straight to 2 touchdowns with Montgomery. You skip the one. You don't
make any money on the one.
You take the odds. Yeah, and go 2.
I don't have that on the fly, but you're probably getting 4-1 on that. So
I'll look it up for us.
Yeah, both running backs look fantastic. As John's looking that up. Rich, your thoughts as far as the receivers? Amon-Ra, do we have a read on that situation? It's a short week as well. Play. Well, yeah, okay. But is he going to be limited in any way?
No one knows. It's the same thing with Montgomery, right?
Yeah. Well, how do we handle that? Because we need ceiling games. Amon-Ra needs to accumulate the
Well, last time I said Amon-Ra hasn't given us a ceiling game, he dropped 35. So maybe we could do that with Justin Jefferson this week. You know what? You know who hasn't had a ceiling game? Justin Jefferson.
And then
Yeah.
the last 2 weeks, we both have challenged Lions wide receivers. I said the one I would fade is Jameson Williams. He comes out and just does what he does, of course. Explosive touchdown, 21% target share last week as well. I think that's why Jameson's my favorite play, one of my favorite plays at cost on this slate, because prior, when he couldn't earn targets, which is the entire reason to not play him last week, now all of a sudden, 3 games past his suspension, ball still spread out, but we're talking about 21, 19, and 21% target shares in that span. When you add that to Jameson Williams' explosiveness on a short slate, especially, like that's the kind of plays I want in this mid-range tier at 6,200 on DraftKings. So yeah, I love JMO on this whole slate.
We've seen the Bears last week, funny talking about Justin Jefferson. I mean, the Bears they've allowed the fewest points to wide receiver ones, and some of that has trickled down to allowing stuff to the ancillary guys. Like you saw Jordan Addison get there last week. So that could open up some stuff for Jameson Williams. We saw 2 weeks in a row players that can win downfield, because the week before that was Christian Watson had the 4 for 150 against them. They have struggled against outside wide receivers. Amon-Ra splits his time there. He's like a 50-50 guy. But yeah, if he is banged up, then JMO is the guy. If he's going to get any type of target, increase, is just, he fits the profile.
Yeah, I was thinking that doesn't hurt the Jameson as far as getting a bump with possibly Amon-Ra being limited in some way.
You
but
got
also,
Tim Patrick.
So yeah, that's what I was getting at. You're right ahead of me. Raymond's out, right? And so, and these are the 3-game slates. This isn't a 10-gamer where you could tell these stories and there's less stories to be told, right? There's only 3 games. So if Tim Patrick has like 3 for 70 and a touchdown, that's really usable. That could be really, really usable on this slate. That could absolutely matter. How ambitious is a guy like Tim Patrick? And does JMO get a little bit of a bump with Raymond being out? And again, we don't know with the Amon-Ra thing, but is Patrick in your pool, Rich? Is he somebody you're considering?
Yeah, there's not a lot of really cheap wide receivers, like really pump plays on this particular slate, because you could choose. I guess you could whack-a-mole Dallas guy like when we get there, and then you've got Dontavian Wicks, but like everyone else is kind of like pretty much set, like kind of where they are. So Tim Patrick's one of those guys you can throw a dart on, because the Bears, we know where the ball goes. Like there's no guy to grasp onto out of the receivers, right? We know where those guys are priced. And the Giants, like, are you going to do Darius Slayton or Jalen Hyatt? Probably not. So Tim Patrick just kind of stands out in that regard. Him and Wicks are like the 2 guys that stand out.
What makes this slate so fun too is that when you add in, again, like Rich said, not many values even at running back, but it is still a wide open slate. You got to make a sacrifice here or there, but you can build however you want, because you can go to Tim Patrick to then get up to other expensive players. You can get 3 elite running backs if you just sacrifice one of the top receivers. So it is a fun slate in that it's not only that you can build it how you want, the world is your oyster, but also we're testing a lot of recency bias in this slate as well. Like Caleb Williams the past 2 weeks, Josh Jacobs the past 2 weeks, the Dolphins offense since week 8, the Cowboys last week. There's a lot of like recency bias coming to head in this particular slate, which makes it fun because those are situations to also be ahead of fading.
John, let's clean up Detroit. We didn't mention Laporta. Tight end is not great. And there's a bunch of guys that are all sort of fine. They kind of like probably project basically the same, more or less.
And we've had some pretty crappy Thanksgiving tight end slates. This at least these dudes could play.
Yeah,
most of them.
Yeah, I mean, we got Komet, we have Laporta. John has been awesome.
Don't you remember like Jesper Horsted? Like
we have been there. Yes,
the name does sound familiar. I don't remember what was he? I don't know why I want to say.
He was a Bear.
Okay, Bears. Yeah, I was losing that name for whatever reason.
Kraft was last year. Remember, Kraft hadn't played, and Musgrave was going to be out, and Kraft was Kraft was min price and scored in game 1.
He's not min price, but he's certainly worth talking about in the mix as far as tight ends and quarterback. We don't have Lamar, we don't have Allen, we don't have the best quarterbacks. There's not a ton of opportunity cost, but Goff doesn't have legs. I don't really know how to prioritize him, but certainly you can go 303, but also.
Well, that's what makes the second game interesting, because like you could theoretically just try to punt quarterback and say no one buries the field, right, at quarterback, which is totally possible when you look at these 3 matchups. Like there's potential that no quarterback has like a 20-point game, even let alone a 30-point game. So if your quarterback can get you 12 to 14 at a perfect salary, and you end up playing like Neighbor, CeeDee Lamb, Amon-Ra, or whatever your favorite. If you get the Achane and Gibbs or just something like that, that could actually be the avenue to take.
And going back to the Lions, yeah, that's why quarterback is so interesting in this particular game. Not only because we're going to open the slate, it's going to lock, and Caleb Williams is going to be chalk for the past 2 weeks under Thomas Brown, but also for Jared Goff, and the Lions offense can always get there as a whole. He's proved us wrong with 400 yards in a blowout. He's gotten there with multiple touchdowns, throwing for 50 yards this year. Like it can always go weird with Ben Johnson and Goff. But last year, remember, that's when the Bears made that giant free agency splash, adding players in particular on defense. And so in those 2 games against Eberflus last year, Goff threw 3 touchdowns to 5 picks, less than 240 passing yards in both games as well. It also just seems like one of those Dan Campbell statement contests to where we are going to get a lot of running the ball to impose physicality in a divisional contest.
Yes.
And that's why, like, one, I do think the Lions just dominate, like -9.5 quite easily. But 2, I just think we see everyone involved here, Gibbs and Montgomery included.
Yeah, Caleb is interesting, man. I mean, I might zero Caleb, to be honest. And
I agree.
And just play it that way. I mean, the Lions, we already know, we talked about it on the show because they've been, part of the pick six, and just about any time they've been on the main slate, they haven't allowed any quarterback to throw more than 1 passing touchdown. Caleb has the one element on this particular slate is that he's the one guy that will run out of the 6 quarterbacks. We've seen him, rush for 70 and 33 yards the past 2 weeks. We've seen Detroit's 23rd in rushing yards allowed to quarterbacks. That's like the one out, right? Like a rushing touchdown on this slate could hold a lot of weight, and he's like the one guy you can kind of say that to. But when you look at the style of defense that the Lions are playing, obviously under Aaron Glenn, they play aggressive, they play a lot of man coverage, playing man coverage at 41% of passing plays. Caleb, even over this period where they bounced back under Thomas Brown, post Shane Waldron, he's thrown for 5.4 yards per pass attempt against man coverage, 26th in the NFL. Like, he's been awful all season against man coverage, 53% completion rate, 5.1 yards per pass attempt. That's 33rd in the NFL this season. I think zeroing Caleb and then just seeing where I can adjust after that, it might be the move to play that.
I'm trying to think, and even like the pairing we saw Allen come to life last week, like 15 targets or something like that. Odunze. Komet has clearly been like who was the guy that was there earlier in the season for whatever reason?
Gerald Everett.
Gerald Everett. Yeah, I think was like friendly with the former coach or something like that. I don't know the whole situation.
I do like Allen the most of the Bears guys.
Okay,
everyone does too. I mean, he has the highest rate all season target rate against man coverage. In the last 2 weeks with Thomas Brown, he's got a 46% target rate per route run against man coverage. He's also played 50% of his snaps in the slot, where the Lions have had like their most issues. We haven't really had a ton of issues against wide receivers, like in general, because again, they haven't allowed multiple passing touchdowns in any game, but they are 22nd in yards per target to slot receivers, and slot receivers have 7 catches per game against Detroit. That's the most in the NFL.
As Reebs plants Keenan Allen, I will go the opposite way and say my least favorite is DJ Moore. I've seen it spun as a positive for DJ Moore about this new usage under Thomas Brown, just because it does allow him to catch more balls, but that's a pathetic 1.9 ADOT. Let's start there. It's a 17.7% target share, also not good these past 2 weeks compared to Keenan Allen's 29%, Odunze's 24% marks. And then also, like, this type of usage is why on the season DJ Moore is averaging 7 more points per game than expected, because it's coming through touchdowns, and now his usage, in my opinion, is just terrible. So Moore is not someone I want to try and play here. Like, yes, the splits are different against man coverage as opposed to last year. If this was the situation like last year where he was 6th in yards per route run against man coverage, we're playing against Aaron Glenn, that would make total sense. But the way he's used now, like, he has to break a long one. And I don't think I just want to bet on that at that salary in this slate.
I was thinking like the Allen thing, even if he's gonna be more popular, like old man on the road, short week. He finally had a big game. I know he's like seeing a bunch of targets, like you said, the slot stuff, but is Keenan Allen gonna be the guy that like I desperately need, to win this slate? I don't think so. And I like the idea of Caleb being under the field. Swift, Roschon's kind of stealing those go-on touches, so like that's, I know revenge, yada yada, but I don't want running backs against Detroit anyway. I don't think I want Swift. I know it's a short slate. Anything can happen. John, you gave a quick no. You're out on Swift, and that's that.
Yeah, he still bounced back with like 16 to 19 running back touches last week, but we talk about it getting condensed at least the last 2 weeks under Thomas Brown with Cole Kmet included. Like it's also boxed out DeAndre Swift, just a 7.4% target share these last 2 weeks. So if you take away the big plays because he's not earning targets, you also take away the goal line from him since Roschon Johnson has outcarried him 6-3 from the 1 yard line this year. All 5 of Roschon's touchdowns coming from 1 yard out. It's just a capped ceiling on a slate that's filled with, again, like we said, 5-6 other guys that like have ceilings.
I didn't hear anything on Laporta. Kind of mentioned him in passing.
Oh, yeah.
Well, who's got a Laporta take?
I mean, like I said, you look at the Bears, where they've been good is against lead wide receivers, and that's just kind of funneled some stuff to tight ends and wide receiver twos. Even that, again, Hawkinson last week had 100 yards, all came in the fourth quarter and overtime, but still got there. Zach Ertz had 7 for 77, and 77 Zach Ertz yards is like 150 yards for Sam Laporta as transit property. Evan Ingram had 10 catches for 100 yards against them in London. So like they have pushed some stuff to the other players because they're so good against wide receiver ones and have been so good against wide receiver ones. They're also really good against deep balls. We didn't talk about that with Jameson Williams being a thing, that like 32% catch rate on deep targets to wide receivers. Only 15 of 46 have been completed against them. So they have been good on those vertical shots. Jameson Williams has like 3 touchdowns this year though, where it's not even a deep ball. It's just like him running that dig and like no one catches him across the field. So he also has that out it too. Just he's faster than everyone else on the field.
Okay. Sounds like Gibbs is our favorite player.
I think Daigle likes Montgomery.
I like Montgomery a lot.
Yeah.
I'm biased to Gibbs. The Gibbs has won me so much money. That's
fair.
How could I ignore him on the day of thanks?
There are definitely some placeholders out there for myself where I have both of them, or like them and JMO. I could be playing 2 or 3 Lions with no Bears run backs.
What about
my
playing
with
Gibbs
is just
Montgomery?
If you somehow get lucky to where either Montgomery's not as healthy as everyone thinks, or he takes 1 shot on the shoulder, and it's not like, then it's just massive. Mm-hmm. Like, because we know like Achane's role now is clear to us. We know what he has. Like, if there's just any chance, like a guy that could go from potentially having like 60% of backfield touches to like 85 to 90% net breaking the slate, he's like the one guy.
That's Devon Bucky Irving, Achan, sir, is the full name.
Shout out to you guys. I think you were both on that last week, if I'm not mistaken. You guys both were all over.
God, dude, when the cards flipped and it was 9%, I've never been more excited in my life.
And then when Sean Tucker got that first touchdown, I almost died inside.
We were tilting so hard together about that Sean Tucker touchdown. And then the very next drive, Bucky Irving got stopped at the 1 on a reception again. But I did want to ask you guys about this Lions game. I'm not sure if any of you are playing like lots and lots of lineups this week, but would you consider making some type of rule, 1 Lions running back in every lineup you play?
That's what I was asking, by the way. I was just the middle of asking, and I think that's an interesting path as well. I'm curious to get your thoughts. Rich, you making a bunch of lineups? Are we forcing at least one of Gibbs or Montgomery in every lineup, or not necessarily?
Listen, here's what we talk: objective spots, right? We have a team at home that's a 10-point favorite. I think got bet down to 9.5. And it has a 30-point team total. What's the signal usually in that environment? Running back.
Yeah, running back. And they're good. They're good running backs.
They're also very good players too. It does help. That's usually the signal, right? When we talk about the late game, we go back to the Dolphins and like what was the signal to stick with the Dolphins after they had 2 like terrible games, not terrible games when Tua came back, but they failed to get there. It's like, dude, they're at home again as favorites against the bad defense with 27-point team totals. Like, you have to play like that spot. And it's the same thing. Like, you got to play the spot too.
Did you have a thought on that, John? As far as the forcing 1 Detroit running back in every lineup?
Oh, okay. I thought y'all meant making a rule to where you only play 1. You're talking at least 1 in every lineup.
At least one in every lineup.
I agree with that. I 100% agree with that, because like if we're talking about offenses that are going to fail tomorrow, I still have the most confidence in the Lions getting there. Mm-hmm. Even the Lions getting there for their floor. What is that? 24, 27 points? Like, yeah. So 100%, like we need these Lions touchdowns and we need to get them right. And yes, because of that, then even Sam Laporta stands out for his salary we are seeing, like Rich touched on it, we're seeing a little more signal now. His last 2 games, 25%, 18% target shares. So getting a little more involved in that offense.
Well, offense is the trust. It's a good segue. Giants, Cowboys, 37.5 is the total. Dallas is a 3.5 point favorite. Drew Lock taking over for DeVito. Rich, you sounded excited about this game, the preseason game. So
as excited
I'll
you
let you
could
start.
be. The 36 point total, like I said, because it's like a preseason game. There's just so many moving parts, and this game is like the actual Spider-Man meme. You've got 2 backup quarterbacks. You've got like a nebulous backfield. Like, we believe Rico Dowdle's the dude. And we'll talk about Rico Dowdle, but like, what if like something happened? Would any of us even really blink? We'd be like, oh yeah, that happened. You've got these 2 wide receivers that basically have lost their ceiling due to the offensive attachment, but are still stacking a tons of targets and have a floor. You've got these 2 defenses that are predicated on, if they get pressure on the quarterback, they're okay. But when they don't get pressure on the quarterback, they're like a bottom 5 pass defense in both directions. So it's like, there's so many moving parts that look the exact same for each team. And that's what kind of makes this a wild card. I do believe that this game is going to be the game where like you have, because from a salary perspective, you have Lamb and Neighbors that are expensive. And then everyone else is affordable. So like this game has the potential value pieces in it.
Do you have a favorite value piece in it?
It's Dowdle still, obviously.
Yeah. I'm curious to get.
What is
ahead,
Cardi
John.
showing him in ownership, Dean? Because at the beginning of the week, he was very light when I started looking and writing everything up on Monday. But like we knew at his salary point in the matchup, the fact that for some reason, I'm still not sure why, for some reason, everyone loves Rico Dowdle. They are excited and want to play him. He's just going to get steamed off the map.
But he's okay. If you do believe him, then you lock him. Like you just play him 100%.
Oh, the salary's so good. I'm not even worried about it.
Like you don't even have to get cute. You just play him in every lineup. If your conviction is that strong. I mean, he had 85% of the backfield touches because Dallas, for the first time since week 3, played with like a neutral and positive game script. He's had 4 games this year where he's had 70% of the backfield touches. In those games, he's been the RB3, the RB8, the RB29, and the RB17 in weekly scoring in those games. If you were to congeal this slate all into one, his pricing is like what, RB20 something. So like that's still like conducive to where you're getting like clear value on that. And then like Dale kind of hit it. I mean, the matchup, like this Giants team, like we talk about Bucky Irving, like how we got the Bucky Irving. I mean, they just allowed 208 yards to the Tampa Bay backfield. The week before that in Germany, they gave up 174 yards to the Carolina backfield. The week before that, they gave up 155 yards to the Washington backfield. The week before that, they gave up 190 yards to the Steelers backfield. And a week before that, they gave up 270 yards to the Eagles backfield. So like they're just handing out like yardage. They can't stop anyone on the ground.
And Ezekiel Elliott will get his celebratory 2 carries, but beyond that, yeah, it's just all Dowdle.
And 2 touchdowns.
Yeah. No.
46%, by the way. So RG projections, 46% currently for Dowdle, and Cardi's got him like 51%.
Okay, we got him at ETR. We got him at 49%. He's one of those guys that whenever you're building lineups, it'll actually shoot out like 97% of lineups with Dowdle just because of salary for that price. Again, we're talking about receivers getting questionable beyond a 4,200 Dontavian Wicks on DraftKings. So that salary is just really, really good for the on-paper matchup.
John, Lamb or Neighbors?
It's going to be an interesting question. We'd have the squeaky wheel as well. The issue is that it's not like Neighbors has been lacking the opportunity. I think people may perceive that, he's going to get more targets from Drew Lock now. He's been getting all the targets in the world. He's at a league high, a receiver high, 33% target share. No other receiver in the league's over 30% right now. I know numbers vary, but like in my sheet, I have no one else at over 30% right now. So he's already leading the league. How much more can his opportunity grow from there? Last week, it was only 76 dropbacks or 76 pass attempts for Drew Lock, but he had a 19% uncatchable pass rate, which is relevant. It's basically similar to Tommy DeVito last year as well. But if we do think a squeaky wheel, if we think they really just shorten Neighbors' routes and get him involved quicker, given that the Giants are now on their third string left tackle, I would assume Brian Dable understands the assignment, and just making sure Locke gets out the ball as quickly as possible. And if not, we know Locke under pressure last year with Seattle still had a 10-yard depth of target because that's who he is. He's been a gunslinger his whole life. You never know where that ball is going to go, but he still throws it deep. I think I personally prefer Neighbors to CeeDee Lamb, who has been the wide receiver 40, wide receiver 14, and wide receiver 14 in his 3 starts now with Cooper Rush since that Eagles game. And also for Neighbors, it's still a question mark of who else I want to play, if anyone, among that offense. We're talking about like Darius Slayton and Jalen Hyatt for whatever reason, maybe because the blowout, even rotating routes basically for the first time all year when they were available together last week. And so to me, it just seems like it's only concentrated, since we have the questions in their backfield, to Neighbors right now. That's why I just prefer him in general to Lamb.
The Neighbors thing, like you mentioned, they asked him about he's like, yeah, ask Daigle.
What an
like,
interview!
Tell him to get
What
me
an
the
interview! Him smacking the gum the whole time. He knew what he was doing, man. He knew what he was doing.
The other thing that was interesting, something must have happened at halftime because like what Neighbors didn't get.
He didn't have a target in the first half.
And then he got like 3 passes.
They only ran
right
9 passing plays in the first half.
Yep.
They got just
first 3 plays out of the half are to him. They get to 1st and goal, and Tyron Tracy's 3rd fumble in the last 2 games. From that point, Tracy actually out-touched Devin Singletary 8-1 until that fumble. After that, though, it was 5 touches to Singletary's 4, and 4 of those touches for Tracy came on the very last drive when he was just getting receptions because they were just trying to kill the clock and move down the field. That's
Imagine benching your rookie running back that's transitioning from wide receiver in a game where you had already benched and waived your starting quarterback.
And you already kind of want to lose. Like it's okay if you lose. It's fine. It's not a big deal.
The layers here. The layers here.
Is there any carryover? Do we think there's any carryover as far as Tracy?
Maybe. I mean, it's who's to say, right?
That's like, the thing.
Who's to say?
Yeah.
It's
it
so
shouldn't
tough.
be, but who knows?
And I can't say that's what makes it so frustrating. Maybe it is honestly worth dabbling because if Tracy gets the carries, we've seen his ceiling, especially in this spot. Like we know he can get it done. But then also who's to say he won't fumble again in this game? But this game is so wacky that perhaps like no one can rule out that the Giants could have a lead at some point and lean on the run. So yeah, it's really just all volatile, which is not bad, but it's all volatile.
Did you have a lean there, Rich, as far as Neighbors versus Lamb, or is it kind of 51-49?
No, they fit the Spider-Man meme. I'm kind of like I said, more on Dowdle, so it pushes me more to like the natural correlated run back. But I mean, look at so Lamb's been targeted on 32% of his routes with Rush under center, but he was only averaging 7.4 yards per catch. And the same thing that Daigle said, Neighbors has over 30% of the team targets, targeted on 30.7% of his routes. And he's averaging 8.9 yards per catch since his concussion. It's the same thing. Like it's the same stuff. I will say that the Cowboys, if you're believing in like a staff getting one guy the football, I think you believe in the Cowboys more because they've been doing it. Like Lamb, they use Lamb creatively at least. They give him some carries. He moves inside. He moves outside. Like Neighbors just lines up outside. Like he flip flops right side, left side, but he only really plays outside. They don't do anything cool with him. Like at least Lamb, like they are getting like he gets a few carries a game, unsuccessful carries, but they still are trying. You don't know. Last year, I think he had 2 or 3 rushing touchdowns. You might get one.
They did do the Cowboys something a little more unique last week too. They're still not fun to watch at all. They're one of the most boring vanilla offenses in the league, but they finally got Cooper Rush to just start getting rid of the ball, a la Caleb Williams, as fast as humanly possible. And he had the quickest time from snap to throw of any Cowboys quarterback this year, Dak Prescott included in the start. He went 8 for 11 for over 10 yards per attempt against man coverage as well. Giants play cover 1 at the league's 8th highest rate. So there is still some faith in CeeDee Lamb, but it's like Rich said, I have so much, like just given Rico Dowdle's salary, I don't know if like I would play. I haven't got to Rush, Dowdle, and Lamb yet. I haven't got the Dowdle and Lamb together with Neighbors running it back, but I'm open to it, but I prefer Neighbors.
Yeah, and Rush is kind of the one-off like guy, and we even talked about team defenses. Also, we didn't mention it in the other game too. One thing about Caleb, if you're playing Lions D because they're going to be popular, Caleb hasn't thrown an interception in 190 pass attempts. He's thrown 1 interception on his past 260 pass attempts. Wow. He's really been he gets sacked the shit. Well, it hasn't really gotten sacked under Thomas Brown that much. It's reduced, but like he hasn't turned the ball over, which you would think like from his style of play, like he would be a little more reckless with the football, but he's been really great at protecting the ball.
So speaking of gross questions, this is more of a DK question than a FanDuel question, Rich, but a rush or lock? Do you have a strong lean there?
I prefer rush just because I believe I actually have more confidence outright in just the Cowboys offense in this matchup versus the Giants. Because the one thing the Cowboys can still do through all of their defaults, and when they've gone through it this year, they can still rush the quarterback. Like they can still get pressure on the quarterback, and they've got pass rushers. And this Giants offensive line, since they lost Andrew Thomas, buddy, they have not protected him. I mean, DeVito was pressured on 44% of his dropbacks last week. With Andrew Thomas off the field, they're 31st in pressure rate allowed. And for his career when pressured, Drew Lock, 4.7 yards per pass attempt, 4 career touchdowns, 12 interceptions when pressured. The Giants are the team that like are the wild card in this because like they could be terrible. They could get shut out and like none of us would blink.
And that's what I mentioned. Their fill-in left tackle, Jermaine Illuminor, tweeted tonight that he can't go. Like he tried to go and he's out tomorrow. So they're going to be on their third string left tackle, just backups across the board for Drew Lock. I know everyone wants to generate excitement, but we're still talking about Drew Lock with a backup offensive line.
I mean, the Giants, we talked about that game potentially being a fun DFS game, and we were jazzed that like Bucky Irving got there, but like I was on Baker, like Evan stacks too, and other spots, and it's like they got no push. Like they got zero push.
We're going back. Don't worry.
Oh yeah, we're definitely going back.
We're going back to the island this week.
I mean, yeah, the Panthers are fighting teams back now, but like the Giants, like this team could literally just be dead the rest of the season. Like we're at that point of the season where we might just see some of these teams just be cooked. And the Giants definitely are one of the you got to circle like to have some worry about.
What were the lock incentives they didn't want to pay? Is it something you can actually hit? Does he actually have to do stuff? Or
it's a percentage of snaps, right?
I believe
just
so.
snaps?
Yes.
Okay, just curious how close he was to that, or if he had. I mean, was it millions? I don't know what the. I mean, come on.
And I don't know if it's just gamesmanship. Like we're fully expecting Drew Lock to start, but the Lions still listed Dan DeVito, who didn't even get on the jet with the team.
Yeah, he didn't travel.
They still listed him as a game time decision. And we have it's very rare. We have seen players though get on the jet that morning and make it to the game and play as a GTD. So we'll see. But yeah, we are expecting Drew Lock. I hope it's DeVito. He just throws it rich into this whole damn thing. Just burn it all down. Give Tom Brady and just a 10% DeVito.
Who is
playing
the
against
backup?
Cooper Rush.
Who's the actual backup? If Lock starting, who's
Tim Boyle.
Oh god damn.
Oh wow.
And there's a non-zero chance we see Tim Boyle play tomorrow.
Oh my god. But I will say, but if you look at Rush's last 2 games, I mean, they've been for fantasy purposes like really solid. I mean, 18 points and 16 points. There's a chance at his salary, like 16 fantasy points is potentially really like strong.
Tim Boyle, 4K, by the way, on DK. He did get
as he should. Actually, no, they should have made him 3,900.
Remember, he played last year on Black Friday.
That's right. Yeah, what do you think you're doing with Tim Boyle?
The only Hail Mary I've ever seen return for a pick 6.
Wasn't nearly as good as David Blau's start we got on Thanksgiving that one time during the pandemic. Who everyone remembers the opening drive, long touchdown he threw. No one remembers the second half where, dude, that guy lost all the magic from that first drive.
Remember Kenny Galladay?
Barely, vaguely.
Oh yeah, he was good in theory. He was supposed to be for Detroit.
The Giants during their playoff run just last year. Gosh, that's crazy to think about. But yeah, just last year with Brian Dable and Daniel Jones, their starting wide receiver set in week 1 was Kenny Galladay, Kadarius Toney, and Sterling Shepard.
Kenny Galladay was the starting. That was just last year.
Maybe it was 2 years ago. 2 years ago. Yeah, 2 years ago.
Don't you remember? In like week 17, he played and made like a ridiculous catch against the Eagles. I forget who they started. It was some blast in the pass quarterback that they started, and like he had like a ridiculous touchdown. It's like his last hurrah.
John, I'm building the parlay. You mentioned you like Detroit. It sounded like you're saying Detroit didn't lay the points. I can't believe it, but shouldn't we be laying 3.5 for Dallas? I hate even saying that out loud, the Cowboys versus anybody, but it feels like they're the better team here.
It's probably not even proper betting. I would buy that half point though. I'm not laying 3.5 with this Cowboys team. No way.
Did you?
I would lay, and I did 9.5 though. Very confident about 9.5.
Who's your favorite cheap player here, Daigle? Not Dowdle. Give me one of these nonsense guys. Shoemaker. If you think Theo Johnson gets in the box,
Schoonmaker is an interesting toss-up, though, because maybe he does get a little bit steamed. It's a good tight end slate, as we mentioned. We've now seen him finish as a top 9 tight end for fantasy, including last week's 55 yards and a touchdown in all 3 games where he's played a majority of the snaps in place of Jake Ferguson. But also, the Giants have been awesome against tight ends this year, including last week limiting Cade Otton to 1 catch for 30 yards. And Cade Otton himself is a litmus test. I may even run him back out there this week and just close my eyes because, as Reebs talked about last week too, about Cade Otton taking on the red zone and end zone targets without Evans. Evans comes back. Cade Otton basically gets ignored in that department, unsurprisingly. But the Giants have still allowed the second fewest. They're 31st in points allowed to tight ends. So maybe Schoonmaker just kind of gets boxed out in this game.
All right.
Theo Johnson's been getting targets. He's out there.
He's dropping them, but yeah, he's getting them.
Yeah.
Is that like okay, we got to segue. We got to move on to the next game when we talk about Theo Johnson.
Also, we talked about Theo Johnson, but is Greg Dulcich going to be active tomorrow?
Clue.
Yeah. Still rocking the same hair? I've not seen him in a while. Do we know?
Has anyone seen him for a while?
I don't know.
Was he even on at the field? Like, was he with the team that whole time?
I don't know. I don't. I'm not the guy to ask. I couldn't tell
that's
you.
someone Sean Payton, like Dennis Allen with Kendra Miller. The moment Sean Payton saw Greg Dulcich, he decided he hated him.
Yeah.
Miami is taking on the Packers. That is the last game of the night. 47.5 is the total. Green Bay is about a 4-point favorite here versus the Dolphins. I did pull up Ross weather report. It's just going to be cold. Like, no surprise there. It's going to be.
Oh, this is a big weather week, right? This is like our first one of the season.
Mm-hmm.
So he has 3 games yellow. He's yellow in Cincinnati, yellow Green Bay. Of course, this stuff can change, obviously. But I did think it was interesting. He was apparently there's some people out there, and like Roth is kind of taking a stand, at least early in the week. I'll go ahead and read it. San Francisco Buffalo. It says, I've seen the hype around this being some sort of Snowmageddon. And while I'm not ruling that out, I think we should all pump the brakes a bit. Are people saying it's going to be a Snowmageddon in Buffalo?
I trust Roth. That's me.
Also, does it matter? Like, what if it's played on dry land and Trent Williams is inactive? We're going to get the same shit we got last week. So
also,
who cares?
Snow is fine.
Yeah.
And we saw that on Thursday night. And snow actually sometimes helps the offense because they know the play and they know where the ball is going. And it's almost advantageous for the offense to be in snow games.
How amazing was Jameis on Thursday? It's just incredible.
Just a special human.
I can't believe they kept us from him for so many years. Stop doing he's got to be the quarterback somewhere for the next 7 years. I don't care who he's playing for.
I went to see Gladiator 2 during the game, so I had to watch the game later. But I can tell you the game was probably better. No spoilers though.
Oh, is that? I wonder is that saying something like Gladiator 2 as well? Is that saying something about both?
That's okay. I don't know if the world needed it. You kind of got what you expected.
Yeah,
we got forced an unoriginal idea where they like True Detective season 3 and 1, where they just said, "What if we just do that again?" But like a little bit worse.
Yeah, it's the typical.
2,
not to give a
2
0.5, a 0.5 movie review, but it falls in the same problem that every movie that has come out in the past decade of something of an IP that came out another decade before. It's like, hey, do you remember that thing you liked? What if we do that a little bit worse?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Also, we shouldn't.
Will you like that?
I will not spoil it again, but you do have to expand your imagination at some points. One point in particular, and I don't like expanding my imagination when we're going through I know it's fraudulent Roman history, a little bit of truth in it, but I don't want to expand my imagination when we have real people with real situations. That's too much of an ask for me.
I will see it, but my expectations are also tempered. I'm not expecting it to be as good as Gladiator.
I don't think I was until I walked in and there was some guy in a true Marcus Aurelius costume, and I was like, hell yeah, we're here. We've arrived.
I always
get
promise
that mileage
people,
out of that Halloween get up.
I always promise the people no movie talk, and we're going to be backload all that. You're here for football. We're giving you an hour and a half of football.
It's
somebody out there is really angry. They're really upset. Oh my God, I
Yes.
cannot believe we're talking movies. We'll talk movies later. Our apologies. Last game, Miami, Green Bay, 47.5 total. Miami's about a 4-point dog here. Temperatures around the 20s. It should be below freezing, but probably not a wind issue. John, I'll let you open this up as far as the Dolphins and the Packers. You weren't in the room, but I was going on a little rant here about Miami pre-show, but we don't need that again. We don't need to fire that up again. But growing up in South Florida, I know this is the squarest take in the world, but I do think there's kind of sort of somewhat to, Miami having to pack up and play in Green Bay. And I know I'm not the only person going to tell you about Tua and his history in the cold. I think there's something to it. I don't know how to quantify it, but I think it's something. I don't know. You tell me, John. Is that something?
Well, I was going to go on the Jordan Love side, but
okay.
Sure.
That's fine. I could do the Tua side.
Okay. I mean, I have the cold numbers. I don't know why everyone's polling, because everyone's now polling like Tua under 50 degrees. That's really odd. Like at least get to like the freezing games he's played.
Yeah.
And there's only been a couple under Mike McDaniels.
There's only been two.
And two, right. And I like both sides of this game. I see how this game fails, but I also think it's volatile the same way we talked about the Cardinals Seahawks last week, where I can envision myself playing 6 or 7 players from this game just because I want to soak up all the touchdowns here. So I'll go ahead and, since I called the Green Bay set, I'll take that. And that's what makes this game interesting, because although the Packers recently, and in particular out of their bye, just 17 and 22 pass attempts, have been more run heavy, those are game scripts that also allowed them to be run heavy. And if they try to do that in this situation, I'm not so sure it's going to work, because Miami's defense out of their week 6 bye have been a lot stronger against the run. And in a slate where we have to get the elite running backs right, I think Josh Jacobs, although he's obviously very capable as an every touch running back of exploding for a long one here, I think he's actually my least favorite running back among all the ones we have to choose from, Rico Dowdle, David Montgomery included, at salary. Out of their bye now, the Dolphins 22nd in yards per carry, and not a league best, but now they're only slightly below average in the advanced metrics, missed tackles forced, yards after contact per attempt, instead of ranking around top 3. And so if they're going to stop the run, then that leaves us with Jordan Love and these pass catchers at least a little more condensed without Romeo Doubs. And that's where it gets interesting, because you can pass the ball on Miami. And we know Jaden Reed has only popped up for a 20% target share in 2 games all year, but we do have 83 plays with Doubs off the field this year, and Reed has a team high 23% target share. We've seen Christian Watson. His box score looks a little bit different last week if he catches the 50-yard touchdown. And yes, that's Christian Watson. That's what he does. He will drop a pass on you, him and Dontavian Wicks. But at salaries like 4,900, Dontavian Wicks 4,200. Remember, the only 2 games that either Doubs or Watson missed this year, and Wicks was thrown into 3 wide receiver sets. He had a 24 and 28% target share. At their salaries, the way they win is how you win tournaments. They win big. And so maybe I'm open to Tua, very open to Tua as well, but maybe I do play Jordan Love and just run it at the big play receivers and then spin it back with the Dolphins chalk, like Achane and Jonnu Smith too.
You mentioned Doubs being out, still kind of a whack-a-mole there for Green Bay with Reed and Watson and Wicks and Kraft, and you never know, Melton or Heath can sneak in the box as well. Rich, give us what you got as far as Green Bay, and feel free to jump over and talk about Tua and Miami.
Yeah, and Miami has been really vulnerable to the vertical ball this year. They're 29th in catch rate allowed to receiver targets 20 yards or further downfield. So you can hit a home run on them. I also like Christian Watson too. Thanksgiving hero from last year, Christian Watson, when he was really cheap.
That's the game he got injured in too, right? Or was it the next week?
I think it was the week after because they played on Thursday, I think, against the Chiefs, or the Sunday, and then got hurt. He was good against the Lions on Thanksgiving, and then he got hurt, I think, the end of the Chiefs game. He had 2 touchdowns already on Snead or something and got hurt. So I also like that angle, and Daigle kind of talked about the Miami run D since their bye, which has been good. I mean, they're 4th in yards allowed before contact, and they face James Conner, 20 carries for 53 yards, Kyron Williams, 15 for 62. Ramondre barely counts last week, but they only have 13 yards on 8 carries. So I do like that kind of way to play the Packers side as well. If this game is cold and it turns into like a run fest, I definitely have a lot more faith in the Green Bay run game than the Miami run game, though. This has been like an ongoing thing with Miami. I mean, they are one of the most unsuccessful running back rush teams in the NFL, which you probably wouldn't think of because Achane's been so good from a fantasy stance, but he's been really good from a fantasy stance through like touchdowns and catches. That's like really his thing. 25% of his runs have failed to gain yardage. It's actually the highest rate of any running back with 100 or more runs this season. He still has an 11% explosion run rate, which is a 13th out of those 30 running backs, but he's had to increase workload, and the receiving work is really what's anchored him to get there. So he's still a guy that can get there through like his usage and the short passing game, which I think is going to be like the bread and butter for the Dolphins. But my big top down take with the Dolphins before we even get to the cold stuff is the last 2 weeks we were on the Dolphins, or at least sticking with them, at least from a season long stance too, where like I had Tua written up as like a 1 QB streamer, like you wanted to target him, as they were in objectively good spots. They were at home against bad pass defenses, the Raiders and the Patriots, and they had mid 20 point team totals. Like objectively, you say, yes, we just follow that spot, believe in it. Now they're on the road as underdogs with a 19.5 point team total. Like there's a signal here that says like, maybe we should have a little bit of caution before we even start bringing narratives in. I do think that the cold stuff maybe has some truth to it, but like the sample we have is not indicative to tell us that. The last time the Dolphins played in the cold was that game in Kansas City in the playoffs that was -4 degrees.
Oh, that was bad.
Where their entire defense was hurt, and they faced a Kansas City pass defense that was top 5 in the NFL.
And my dad couldn't find the game because it was on Peacock.
Everyone's dad could.
But the game before that, the other game, they scored 29 points. They lost 32-29 in Buffalo in freezing weather, and Tua threw for 234 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. So what are we really supposed to take away from that, right? My problem, though, is when I look at what's going on with this Miami Dolphin offense, is they lack the explosive plays that they've had in previous iterations under Mike McDaniel. Tua has thrown a league-high 33% of his passes at or behind the line of scrimmage. The league average is 22.6%. His previous career high is 27%. Only 25% of his passes have gone 10 or more yards downfield. The only quarterback with a lower rate is Gardner Minshew. Last season, his rate was 35.5%, so 10% drop. Only 7.8% of his throws have gone 20 or more yards downfield. That's also second to last. In 2023, that was 11.4%. The Dolphins' game plan, literally on offense, is to put themselves in third and manageable and convert those and like stretch games out. That's like what their offense has been predicated upon. I will say, though, that makes this individual matchup against the Green Bay Packers almost advantageous for them. The Green Bay Packers are literally built on defensively in creating turnovers and creating pressure. When they don't get pressure, they have been a terrible pass defense. And Tua has only been pressured on 20% of his dropbacks, the lowest rate in the NFL, because of the short passing game. You can't get to him because the ball is going at or behind the line of scrimmage. When the Packers have pressured the opposing passer, they've allowed 4.3 yards per pass attempt. It's the lowest rate in the NFL. Without pressure, they go to 27th in yards per pass attempt. They also are one of the worst teams against play action pass, which the Dolphins, do. It's more of like an RPO type of play action pass, than like a true under center play action. But there is some kind of like matchup strengths here for the Dolphins to kind of like create this to be kind of a boring game with the short passing game.
We saw Waddle come to life, had a big game last week. Finally, Jonnu's been awesome. I know my new bit now is like Tyreek is not getting there, but next week he was fine with 19 points or so last week. But, obviously didn't win you anything necessarily. No, that was 2 weeks ago against Vegas. New England, he didn't really do a heck of a lot. I think I get in the box against Vegas. Maybe this is the week. We'll see. Do you have a favorite receiver, Rich, as far as Miami? I just picture like the way you described it, like 15-play drive, like 10 minutes, 12 minutes, and a field goal. That's what I'm picturing. A field goal from the 7-yard line. It's like, look how they massacred my boy. Like, what happened to this offense for the Dolphins? It used to be so much more fun. It's just not as fun as it once was. But favorite.
When you have these games in the cold, like you have kind of these weird plays though too, and if you like, I know like you said the Martingale before the show about Tyreek, but like if Tyreek was to like catch one and break a tackle, it'd be at a game without Jair Alexander in the cold, like kind of fluky kind of setup. I think probably my favorite pass catcher is still Achane because of all those things I laid out, the short passing game. But this is also why Jonnu Smith's a thing. Like this is totally why that Jonnu Smith has been relevant. Since his week 6 bye, he's 4th among all tight ends in targets, 3rd in receptions, 2nd in receiving yards. Since Tua returned, he leads the team in target share. and over 2 yards per route run. And he's been targeted on over 20% of his routes in all 5 games. It's not like there's like a one standout game like anchoring the small sample. And then Green Bay has been a team we've targeted with tight ends all year. I mean, they're 21st in receptions allowed to tight ends. They're 23rd in yards per target, 22nd in touchdown rate. Like tight ends have given them trouble. So, I mean, there's a reason Johnny's a thing.
John, what do you have as far as Miami?
Very similar thoughts. I think Jonnu and Achane are very good chalk, just the way they're used. That's why, again, as I talked about running Green Bay offense and then putting these pieces back in, because we still have questions about Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. Believe they can get there. But it's also, like I said at the top of the show, where recency bias is coming head on in a short slate. It gives us opportunities to fade. A week ago, you couldn't pay anyone to play Jalen Waddle. And now all of a sudden, everyone is excited to play him. And so I'm just questioning the ownership aspect of it. It makes me definitely want to be underweight Waddle when everything locks.
I'm pulling up the ownership stuff as you're talking about it here as far as Miami. I got DK stuff. This is the RG projections. I'm sure ETR be a little bit different. I'm sure Cardi would be a little bit different as well. Achane 33, Johnny 33%, Hill 23, Waddle 10. So,
okay,
you know, according to this, at least, this obviously could change. But, yeah, that's a pretty reasonable number if you like him for sure. To a 10%, the 10% as well, just have notes.
I mean, I'd much rather play a Packer wide receiver than Waddle.
Play 2 Packers wide receivers.
Let's get these power rankings for me.
Let's get these 161s in the
I like
lineup.
Watson. Where are you, Daigle? Well, other than Reed, like I get Reed. Like we know. We don't need the story. I thought we were talking about just between Wicks and Watson.
At ETR, I know we're taking a stand on Wicks. We do like Wicks a lot. I like Wicks a lot. Gosh, I like both. I genuinely love both. I may even play Dolphins with both of those wide receivers without Jordan Love. Both are awesome options.
Anything else we want to say as far as Miami and the Packers?
We didn't touch on Tucker Kraft. I mean,
Kraft. You mentioned him in passing, but yeah, give something on Kraft.
He has led them in routes run now, the whole team, in back-to-back games. He's still out there every single snap. Not to mention that it's a condensed target tree. Like no Romeo Doubs takes away a lot of this pie. So Tucker Kraft, he's in his best situation he's been in the last couple of months as an every down player.
Some quick hitters before we move on and talk about the main slates. Just give me this, guys. Quick hitters. Rich, favorite game?
I guess the middle one.
That's amazing.
You didn't want to say the teams
because I just think that's the value. Like if anyone's gonna like really do like damage this slate, I think it comes from that game.
Yeah, John, do you have the same answer? Dallas in New York?
Absolutely not. I get it. I get the argument, but absolutely not.
Not for watching purposes.
I'm not excited about either fading or playing 50% Rico Dowdle, like who is a good play. He's an objectively great play. I don't think I'll get off of it, but I don't know. Like, we single entry the Wildcat. I don't know. I may get off of it. We'll see. I like the night game. I love the night game. I don't know how I'm going to play it just yet, but I love 6, 7, 8 players from the night game. Just going overweight.
My next question was favorite stack, John, and I don't know. It's probably something from that game, but you don't really know how you're going to do it. Do you have and however you want to answer that. If you want to say like a Miami piece or just like you like Green Bay, like love with 2 guys.
My heart loves 5 or 6 Dolphins. The computer loves 4 Packers with 2 or 3 Dolphins. I don't know which direction I'm going to go just yet.
Rich, favorite stack?
I like Packers with like H and Jonnu.
Yeah.
Rich, your favorite quarterback? Cooper Rush.
Cooper Rush is a really, especially because
I think Cooper Rush you could theoretically do. I'm going to build my lineups tonight when we get real all lathered up, but get real crazy Cooper Rush. But my idea is like, can I get Cooper Rush, Gibbs, and Achane together?
I think you can.
Yeah.
And that's what I want to just see what I can get with Cooper Rush. My like real kind of stance on this slate is that no quarterback shadow realms the slate. And so by default, if that happens, like a 14-point quarterback game at low price could be really relevant.
That That makes sense because everyone's talking about how like the Lions-Bears game is the highest total. It's already sunk over a field goal. Like that game is coming down because everyone's aware the Lions are just going to pound the rock all night. So that game could be like 35, 38 points total if the Bears don't answer.
John, your favorite quarterback?
I think it's Jordan Love, and I think I'm going to have the hardest fade on Caleb Williams.
You know what? That was my next question.
Fade.
Boldest fade. Boldest fade is Caleb Williams. Okay. Favorite running back, John. This is obviously all things considered, understanding ownership and understanding projection. You get all the reasons why I'm asking the question.
I'm going to go Dave Montgomery. I really like Dave Montgomery tomorrow.
Rich?
I think objectively Achan's the best, but Gibbs is my favorite.
Yeah. Rich, give me your favorite receiver. You can't say Achan. You said that from Miami.
Yeah. I think Christian Watson.
I like it. John?
I think Jameson Williams.
Tight end, John? Favorite tight end?
Yeah, it's objectively it's Jonnu Smith. It's just too good. The everything's so clean for Jonnu. I think the thinner one is probably Sam Laporta.
Rich?
Yeah, I kind of like the Laporta shout as a guy to kind of keep an eye on, to just jam in there and see what happens. The F around and find out play.
Hypothetically, you're running 150. Let's say you're running 150, John. Give me like the most ambitious, goofiest name that's going to be in your player pool. I
like this. We should do quick hitting questions from now on for the main slates. By the way, I like Q&A Dean. This is fun. It makes my brain think. But so 150, the most X out or the highest rostered?
No. Like, give me the most ambitious, potentially goofy play, like a floor of 0 that would be in your player pool. If you're trying to win, give me the name of the player that's the most ambitious person in your pool. If you're running 150,
I know it. It's Emmanuel Wilson. Sadly.
Ooh, okay. Is he like 4K?
He's like the Millie. He's the $5 Millie play is what he is. If we think we're going to get into a weird game script, plus like there was a little bit of a signal. Matt LaFleur came out and said he's aware, like they have to be cautious with Josh Jacobs touches after he handled 19 first half carries, 26 overall this past game. Since the bye, it's only been 2 games. Yeah, short week. It's only been 2 games out of their bye. But if you take his usage from the bye all the way to the time the Packers built a 31-10 lead in the second half against the Niners, he's handled 77% of their backfield touches, which would be his season high mark across the board. So like maybe we get something scaled back. Maybe Emmanuel Wilson is involved a little more. He's a player they trust.
Of course, Wilson, not 4K, 4.3. They got to get that extra $300. He's got to be 4.3.
Kevontae Turpin isn't a bad shout either, just as a cheap punt over Tim Patrick.
I was waiting for someone to say to do the double up because you always get that when people say the short slate, the Turpin plus Cowboys.
I think we kind of lost that dream once CSU Ram got out the game. Once he got his first 100 million, we didn't get double dips anymore.
Producer TJ threw us up on the screen. Yeah, Heath, Melton, Turpin, Slayton. So he gave us four ambitious receivers. And I think TJ probably is running 150.
Listen,
I feel like that's what he's doing.
I mean,
right. I'm going to do 100. I don't think I want to quite do 150 in the Millie Maker, but I might just do 100.
The 3 hottest people right now who I don't nix anything they say are Dink, Squirrel, and TJ. Like those are the 3 guys right now winning everything in the last few weeks. So I don't want to mock anything TJ's saying for sure.
I'm the one almost winning everything. They're the ones winning the big dollars. I'm the ones getting really close.
Yeah, they're the ones winning 6 digits, but that's okay. I'd rather win 5 digits than 6. That's okay. But yes, I do think Heath and Melton are still very thin plays in a short slate. Last week, Heath was only in there in true garbage time and the fourth quarter. And we've seen in the past, even when they're down to only 3 wide receivers, they just don't use Melton enough, like at all.
Rich, your son is in the chat touting Zeke. I don't know if you saw that.
He's trolling. He doesn't believe it.
Well, he used to say before, he used to tell us like he would try to make things that he would have really ambitious plays. So maybe he's not trolling. Maybe he's trying to tell a story. This is the last time America is going to watch Zeke in Dallas, possibly a national audience. Grand scale, it's got to be over, right? Soon, it has to stop. Like he's not coming back next year, I imagine.
Jerry Jones mentioned giving Mike McCarthy an extension possibly. So I'm not ruling anything out. Let's just play this thing out. I can't wait.
Did you have an answer for that, Rich? In Bishop, unless you want to take your sons, you want to take Zeke. By all means,
No,
that's yours.
mine's probably worse. It's Raheem Mostert.
Okay.
Oh,
and literally nothing objective to say except for like on a slate like this. So we're only 2 games removed from him. Well, the game before last and the week before, him still out snapping Devin Achane inside the 5. And if you just get a touchdown out of a running back, like you never know what could happen. So
if you get 6 points out of someone below 5,500, you're absolutely live.
I have a hard time believing like the rest of the season, like Mostert's only going to get like 2 touches a game.
Is he ahead of Wright?
No. Well, Wright's been ahead the past 2 since Mostert's fumble against the Patriots. It was the Patriots, right?
It was a really
am I
big
missing a game?
punishment.
It was
That
3
third
weeks
quarter
ago.
was 3 games.
It was the
ago.
Bills. It was the Bills. It was the Bills game.
Wright fumbled last week against the Patriots, so maybe this is the.
It was the
week
Bills
that-
game that Mostert fumbled in the 3rd quarter, and then
Yes.
just like we
Swap
haven't
it
really
back
seen
there.
him since.
And
Swap it
also,
back.
Wright the past few weeks, like since he got that opportunity, has been miserable.
But
Just
but
absolutely terrible.
But the 2 weeks ago when they played the Raiders, when they got inside the 5, Mostert was in. They ran 2 goofy plays, but Mostert was the guy on the field. So like, it still could like he still might be part of the goal line like stuff. I don't think that we're like past that.
Yeah, and if the conditions call for it, he just seems like the guy that might grind it out a little bit more. Like, you know, who knows how it's going to turn out. Probably not precipitation, but, you know.
Also
we're
missing
talking
the
like
toe,
large
which has to help you in cold weather.
Mostert has 9 toes?
Yeah, he shot a toe. He lost a toe in like a gun accident as a kid or something.
Oh, okay. I wasn't aware.
I think
All
there's a running back with 6 toes too.
Antonio Fonseca used to pitch for the Marlins. And he had 6
with that little finger.
Back in the day. If you know, you know. He was one of the closers for the Marlins back, I don't know, 20 years
I'm just saying,
ago.
out of a gross one, like I did. So I was messing around. I haven't cemented anything, so I want to go through. But I did a 50 lineup build, and I just threw like 2 Mostert lineups in.
And like, what do you have as far as like is that it for Miami? Like nothing else? Is it just Mostert like a la carte? Like you don't run. It's not a part of a Miami stack. It's just
no, yeah, it's just like him as a oneer in those.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
I don't think I'm gonna have in the Millie. I will. Otherwise, though, in the smaller fields, I don't think I'm gonna have many one-offs. Like you can build uniquely without them in this slate because even the cheap tight ends are good plays.
I mean, I think Cooper Rush is the one-off guy.
Sure.
You just play Cooper Rush.
But you can pair him, you know, he's got some cheap, tight ends.
Playing with Rico
But
Dowdle.
like he's also
Dowdle's
like
not terrible.
he could throw a touchdown to the ghost of Brandon Cooks or Jalen Tolbert or any of these dudes you're not gonna play.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean,
I like the call.
How is anyone doing anything with that Dallas wide receiver 2?
I don't know any wide receiver 2 in that game, right? And the Giants and the Cowboys. It seems pretty clear.
But Wandale will get played.
Fucking Wandale.
Why does everybody hate him? It's the A dot. Everybody hates the A dot.
Yeah.
And that's
It's just criminal that
not his
like
fault.
he gets that many targets. Like that's the offense. It's not his fault. That's the offense and what it is. And it's frustrating because it's a dumb offense.
It's also like he doesn't do anything with those targets. So, like if you don't think having Malik Neighbors A-dot with his inefficient targets is fun, like try having Wan'Dale Robinson whose targets are efficient and it doesn't matter at all.
Okay. I think we gave you an hour plus for Thanksgiving for the 3-gamer. We're going to talk
It's like
about the main
45
slate.
on football and 15 on movies. Yeah. It's 3 games.
You know, that's the official breakdown. Let's go ahead and talk about the main slate. Oh, before we do that, I do want to mention our Thanksgiving table here at RG, a little something for everybody. This week only, we're letting you pick the discounts. We're offering deals on all active sports, including $40 off your first month of Combo Pro, 50% off the NBA annual package with a jam-packed sports schedule this week. Perfect time to get some premium access. Okay, so we're just going to talk about our favorite plays, position by position, on the main slate. FanDuel again, including San Fran and Buffalo. There may or may not be a Snowmageddon. We'll see. Stay tuned as far as the Sunday night game. The premier game on this slate, Philadelphia at Baltimore, probably would have been, John, that would have been on the board if we were power ranking, I imagine.
Dude, I hate that game. The total keeps coming up, and I'm still so skeptical based on like what the Eagles have done on defense out of their bye since they got Cooper DeJean back. So I think that one definitely would have been a 1-3 games. I was looking at this. I think Rams Saints may have been in there because there's going to be some firepower in that one. And then probably Bucks Panthers, if only because I have zero trust in the Jaguars. Like they may get Trevor Lawrence back. I still don't understand why Doug Peterson's coach. I'll play some CJ Stroud. We'll get to that, but I still have questions about the Jaguars.
My favorite report was like Peterson's on the hot seat. If he loses this team, he's supposed to lose by 7 touchdowns. He's going to get fired, and he did, and he didn't. So like I don't know.
They named the reporter named the interim coach. They're like, I don't know, Mike McCoy's going to get in there.
I would make him finish the season. That's the punishment.
That's his punishment.
We said, I was on a show at Davis Maddock. It's like when you catch your kids smoking cigarettes and you make them finish the whole pack. Like Doug Peterson should have to finish the season. Like you make him finish the season.
Did you see the story?
You don't get to go home for the holidays, Doug. You're here.
Speaking of coaches that got fired, the dude that used to coach the Gators, God, what's the guys? Yeah, he didn't know his coach that was on his staff for 2 years.
Which
is that real?
Definitely real. And the best part about that story is that it was unprovoked. Like they could have moved on, but Mike Vrabel made sure to insert himself into that conversation and say, "Hey, I got a story about Urban Meyer for you," just to point out again, Urban Meyer, one of, if not the worst NFL coach of all time, and also a dick,
all-time monster.
Shout out to Vrabel. I respect.
I feel like a lot of those college coaches were just monsters. Like that,
yes.
Who Dabo Sweeney, that dude's a monster.
Petrino didn't go well in the NFL. Nick Saban himself didn't go well. They all burned out in their own special ways, but Urban Meyer was one where he treated grown men like children. And from the very first when he was hired in training camp, it was clear this is going to go terribly.
I will not mention Tommy Tuberville either. Okay, let's go ahead and talk about our favorite quarterback, Rich. Favorite quarterbacks for the main slates, DK, FanDuel, 10-gamer on DK, and FanDuel again, including Buffalo and San Fran.
Well, just as a top down before we get to my plays, I just started the Eagles Ravens game is super fascinating because of like all the strength on strength matchups. So the Ravens, like we've talked a lot about how, this season, like they've been really good against the run and they force teams to pass. The Eagles are just not passing at all. I mean, they have a 41% drop back rate since their bye. Their highest drop back rate in a game is 48.6%, literally not even half their snaps. And opponents, Baltimore, 68%. But also when you look at like Baltimore's like opposing run schedule, they face nobody. And like, at least not in the realm of Saquon Barkley or this rushing game. And that also holds true for the Philadelphia Eagles. Like they have just not faced a run game as good as this one either. So like, I'm excited to kind of see like these two strength on strength, like kind of matchups. Daigle literally like he talked about Malik Neighbors' target share and not rivaled. There is a player that's rivaled it in his games played, and it's AJ Brown. AJ Brown literally has played 7 full games. He's got over a 30% target share in all of them, in every single one.
Wow.
And we might actually see some dropbacks for them, maybe. Like, we'll see. So I mean, definitely that game is just super compelling in a lot of different angles. I'm really excited to watch that. That's gonna be like a real great, like real football game. I can't wait to watch that game.
The salaries are tricky, obviously.
Like it's really hard to you can't onslaught that game.
No.
What is Saquon even on FanDuel now? He was 10K last week. He's got to be. Well, he was probably on Sunday night. So
he's 9-2.
What?
Yeah. Are you surprised though? Let's be honest. Are you surprised?
He was 10K last week.
I know. This is FanDuel we're talking about. Rich.
But 9-2?
He had a bad game, Rich. They had to bring him down.
Holy shit, dude. I mean, this guy.
Mixon's 9-5.
What an absolute joy Saquon Barkley is. And then what's funny is, we've talked about Saquon getting tackled at the 1 and the tush push kind of being like, did it hurt like Saquon, being an MVP potential? But the last 2 weeks, Saquon has done his own version of hurting Jalen Hurts by just scoring from 50 and 60 yards out.
Home runs.
So Jalen Hurts actually has had 2 of his lowest scoring games of the season the past 2 weeks because they're not getting drives. They're like, when you score a 70-yard rushing touchdown, you just subtract plays from the offense. So like he's actually kind of hurt Jalen Hurts inversely by doing the opposite. His version of the reverse tush push is, well, you know what? If I can't score from the 1, I'll score from 70.
What do we call it? It's not the tush. Well, what is
the
reverse tush push? Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying.
But he's actually reduced like snaps for that offense because he's got touchdowns from 29, 23, 70, and 72 yards the past 2 games.
It's pretty good.
Seems pretty decent.
How the Giants? Well, it's been a rough season for the Giants.
The Broncos have 2 touchdowns this season from outside the red zone.
That's a pretty amazing stat. 2 touchdowns.
Actually, the Dolphins do too. They're tied for last. The Broncos and Dolphins, the team we talked about.
Rich, did you want to give anything else as far as a rundown before we dive in as far as quarterbacks? Because we do, we have at least early as far as projections, a pretty clear chalky quarterback on both FanDuel and on DK.
Is it Herbert?
Yes, it's Herbert. 19% currently. Again, Wednesday night, yada yada. Grain of salt. 19% Herbert on FanDuel and 23% Herbert on DK at 5-6 in the Dome at Atlanta.
Tracks. That game's gotten steam too. It's gotten bumped up. The over under.
Are we in on that?
Yeah, of course. I mean, no J.K. Dobbins. Gus Edwards is not going to be the answer for that run game. They've already skewed a little more pass heavy, and it fits into the matchup. I mean, we've seen Herbert running more. The Falcons are 22nd in passing points allowed per attempt. 78% of the touchdowns they've allowed have been passing. It's the highest rate in the NFL. They've allowed front-end QB1 scoring weeks to Derek Carr, over 20 points to him. Bo Nix had 29 in their past 2 games. They've allowed over 20 fantasy points to quarterbacks in 4 straight games. Because if you congeal Dak plus Cooper Rush, they combined for over 20 points in that game. They're 31st in pressure rate, and they've given up the most rushing yards to quarterbacks. So it all lines up for Herbert.
You agree, John?
Herbert is definitely in the pool. He's an amazing one. I don't know how to play it. You could also even play him naked if you wanted to, because he is adding this rushing floor now in his last 3 games. That's helping him get there. So Herbert's interesting. We didn't get to the rest of Rich's pool, so I'll steal a couple. I like going back to Baker Mayfield. And again, with 10 games, also a short slate for a main slate. I'm definitely looking to onslaught this week and just try to condense these touchdowns. It may be a little tough because there are a lot of good spots against very bad defenses too. Baker Mayfield, though, not only are we getting the pushback finally from Bryce Young, so we can have a little bit of confidence against this, what we believe is still a bad Bucs secondary. But I
do not believe that.
You think they've turned it on the last couple games? Because it was easier matchups.
Well, no. They got both Jameel Dean and Zion McCollum back.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you look at I had this note in the worksheet, which I will give to you guys. It's a pretty dope nugget. They've now faced 222 pass attempts this season, not a small sample size, with both Jameel Dean and Zion McCollum. 87% quarterback rating, 6.6 yards per pass attempt, 2.3% touchdown rate. With either one of those guys off the field, it's 186 pass attempts, 8.4 yards per pass attempt, 8.1% touchdown rate. So those 2 guys kind of being back, I do think is significant, especially in this matchup, because Bryce Young is not going to get David Moore to torch this team, I don't think.
Right. Okay, that's definitely interesting. It maybe may make me rethink it, but I still like Baker.
But they've been fighting. I mean, the Panthers, they've obviously won 2 games, then they pushed the Chiefs.
And still like Baker. Panthers still this year 31st in pressure rate. Baker leading the league with 23 touchdowns from a clean pocket. No other quarterback, Lamar Jackson included, who's going to be MVP, has even reached 20. So pretty clean spot for Baker, especially if we're getting this condensed target share. He spread it around last week, 24 of 30, looked amazing, back to being a top 12 option, QB9, even in a game where they boat raced the Giants and didn't have to play in the 4th quarter. But it's still Mike Evans we're expecting at full strength after being a 3-quarter player last week. Also, like the Bucky Irving targets, 6 of 8 running back targets. And then again, K-Dot not playing the Giants. So there's reason to just onslaught Baker in this spot. CJ Stroud, we're trying to get off the Joe Mixon chalk here. Jaguars, a league high 8.5 yards per attempt and the most completions on throws 20 yards downfield. You also know where the ball's going with Tank Dell and Nico Collins. So CJ Stroud, it's a great matchup from him as well. And then also, again, just going back to condensing target shares here, Matthew Stafford against the Saints defense, the last month has not had Marshawn Lattimore. And we've seen the last 2 games that, again, where the ball's going. It's been all Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua for 70% of their targets. So, yeah, like Matthew Stafford, too.
That game, I had fun writing that one up. I'm glad that you brought that up for that, because that game could be like the ugly duckling special for sure. I don't know if anyone wants to hear this, and I wouldn't play him in a DFS setting because I don't think he's warranted, especially on the slate with so many good quarterbacks. Derek Carr is 4th in the NFL in passing points, fantasy passing points per attempt. He's also 7th in completion rate now, 6th in yards per pass attempt, 7th in touchdown rate. And he's had 20 fantasy points to the Falcons, as we talked about, 19 points against the Browns. Like, I still believe, maybe I'm just coping because I was in on the Saints offense, but like they're actually doing the things that we said they were going to do. It's just they've had so many damn injuries.
They've gotten better too since they got Eric McCoy back at full strength. Less of a pressure rate allowed their last game before their bye.
I don't think he's necessary to play, and because especially from DFS, you have to worry about like the Taysom stuff impacting Carr too if you ever were to play him. But yeah, that game I think there's that game is just full of objectively good plays. Both Rams receivers, Taysom Hill as a bring back. You can incorporate Kyron Williams if you want to do something.
You can go Marcus Valdes-Scantling if you want, just as a cheap pay down option. Yeah, that game's fun.
Rich, I can tell you with confidence who did not want to hear you say anything kind about that.
I know.
Producer TJ,
terrible, but that's actually not why I popped in. It was to say Eric McCoy actually hasn't practiced this week.
Oh, out of their bye. Okay. I wonder if it's a resting situation or if it's like a ominous Breece Hall situation.
Early ownership stuff.
You can't play that like Derek Carr though. Like he's not a DFS play.
There's also just a lot of good quarterbacks.
Yeah. The other guy you didn't bring up was and I know people probably get tired of just hearing this like win, but Anthony Richardson I think is in a really good spot. I mean, this Patriots team, like we have just picked on this Patriots team. I mean, they are 28th in pressure rate. We've seen him run 10 times back-to-back games. The Patriots have had a top 6 scoring weeks to Matthew Stafford, Tua Tagovailoa. They've also had 17 or more points to Mason Rudolph and Aaron Rodgers over that span. Also, the Colts second in play action, Anthony Richardson, and the Patriots have the league's highest rating on play action, or 30th in completion rate on play action passes. So opportunity there. So I think for him too.
Any other quarterbacks we want to get out there? It is really interesting. Jackson, Hurts, all coming in again super early. The value is not necessarily showing itself. 3% or less.
They're just expensive.
Yeah, AK for Jackson, 7.7 for Hurts. Richardson, by the way, for what it's worth, the second most popular quarterback we're having right now on DK, just 5.5, and we know that rushing ceiling can get you there. Let's talk running backs. Rich, you want to start us off?
Well, if you're going to play Herbert, you just bring Bijan back. Like, you know,
he's top of my list.
We saw before the bye, and I don't know how sticky it'll be, but Tyler Algier only played 1 snap in that game. And we'll see, if it turns into be like a Mostert Achane situation for the stretch run here, right? Like where maybe Bijan is just the guy they're going to lean on for the stretch run. I'll tell you what, if you have Bijan in season long, fantasy playoffs are Raiders, Giants, Commanders. You're still holding those bags, but we've been talking for weeks about kind of just what is the Chargers defense, right? And is their run defense, actually a little bit worse because they haven't allowed many touchdowns and they've forced teams to abandon the run. And we finally saw that all come to light on Monday night when they allowed 200 rushing yards to the Baltimore Ravens. Now, allowing a big game to the Baltimore Ravens run game, not a big deal. A lot of teams have done it. But even before Monday night, they had already allowed 4.5 yards per carry to running backs, which was 20th in the league. They just scripted teams out of the run. Atlanta has been one of the more efficient run games in the league. They're actually number 1 in success rate on runs on early downs. And we've seen some running backs really get there on the Chargers in terms of combo backs. Well, Derrick Henry doing it from a combo stance. He had 140 yards, but Chase Brown the week before that had 143. CC and Alvin Kamara had 122 against them. James Conner had 152 against them. So if you're going to play Herbert and you're going to have your flavor of choice, where I assume it's Ladd, I wish there was one game the Chargers would just give Ladd McConkey like 15 targets and just say, you know what, screw it, we're going to throw him every damn play. And they just haven't done it yet. But man, if Bijan's like the natural correlated play to bring back. And then since Daigle did Baker, I'll take Bucky Irving again. We talked about it last week. There was signal before the 3 games before the bye, even though that they had lost games, that Bucky Irving was going to he had taken over the rushing role from Rachaad White. Now, we did not expect coming out of the bye for him to just outright out-snap Rachaad White and run more pass routes than him, which actually happened. That you were on very fragile ground with Rachaad White coming out of the bye. Like if you have him, like you're very dicey. He got a cosmetic touchdown late in that game, but if he's not out here catching passes, like we're in real no man's land with him. We did see Sean Tucker score a touchdown in the opening drive, so he could still be a thing. He did fumble and then get pulled. But, I mean, Bucky Irving absolutely has been electric with his touches. And Liam Cohen throughout the course of the season and Todd Bowles, their whole thing with this backfield has been like, if you're playing well, we want to play you. And I don't know how when you just see like what Bucky Irving's producing on a per touch basis. On running backs that have 100 more carries a season, there's 30 of them. He's 4th in yards per carry. He's 1st in yards after contact. I think the dopest Bucky Irving stat, he has 238 rushing yards this year on plays where he's been hit at or behind the line of scrimmage. Only Saquon Barkley has more at 255, a 17-yard difference. Saquon Barkley has 95 of those carries. Bucky Irving has 56. Like,
wow.
The dude is an absolute tackle breaker. And now he's trading the Giants for the Panthers. Like, you know, like I mean, he's just going from one just amazing situation to the next.
Also, dude, it's like there's a rotation of Baker Mayfield's career where like he beats some inferior opponents. He starts talking shit. He then plays in a big game and he fails miserably. And then he calls out the doubters and he repeats the cycle of his life. That's been in Baker Mayfield's entire career. But when he's playing good and he's talking shit, he's one of the most fun players in the league. And this week, even like not only the Tommy DeVito over excessive celebration, but then also like running downfield, catching Bucky on that 56-yard touchdown and just blocking dudes. Like, man, yeah, Baker's having the time of his life right now.
Irving up to 5'8" on DK. Not a huge bump from 5'3",
get him to 7. Get him to 7.5. That's ridiculous.
7.2 on FanDuel. So a little trickier. Not to say you can't play him on FanDuel, but FanDuel a little bit more reactionary as far as what's happening of late with Bucky. John, running backs. What do you got? Who's left for you from Rich?
A couple more. I think Chase Brown, although it's pretty obvious, is in a very good spot. There were some rumors from Zach Taylor that they said they were going to watch his workload moving forward. So maybe that means a couple more touches for Khalil Herbert. 1, I can't imagine it'll be enough to matter. 2, those kind of reports are 1 for 100. And that was Sean Tucker last week, the one time it came to fruition. And then he fumbled on the goal line because he's Sean Tucker. So not going to believe it. Chase Brown still 100% of their running back touches without Zach Moss so far this year. And the Steelers in particular, again, maybe it gets steamed, not only for the touches, but because it being a snow game, perhaps people are just naturally going to go to the running backs. The Steelers, though, still 1.9 yard before contact per attempt. So it's still a situation I want to attack. And then also the Tony Pollard, if Tajee Spears is out, I don't know if he's practicing today. He hasn't been cleared from concussion protocol, right, Rich?
No, I mean, I imagine he's going to be back, but it's kind of wait. Obviously, if you can just keep going.
Yeah.
That volume's been outrageous.
And he's made 4 starts now without Tajee Spears, 85% of the backfield touches. He's down at 65% when Spears plays. The Commanders, even since they've figured it out on defense after the first month, when they started creating more pressure, playing more man coverage, even then 4.6 yards per carry, 10th to running backs, and 3rd in yards before contact per attempt allowed at 2.3. So you're still getting run over. Pollard's someone who stands out.
All right. Anybody else we want to feature as far as running backs, or shall we jump to receivers, John?
Not Gus Edwards.
Definitely not Gus Edwards. We can jump.
All right. Kick us off.
I feel like I mention him every week, but we can keep going back to Cortland Sutton. Cortland Sutton's very good at football.
Right.
They're on Monday night. They play on Monday night.
Oh, damn it. They play on Monday night. Okay. I haven't done that yet this year. I was waiting for it. It makes sense that it's Thanksgiving. All right. Well, then let's get cheap. Rich mentioned Anthony Richardson. And so it seems like Josh Downs going to be out. No idea about Alec Pierce, but regardless, I think A.D. Mitchell is a terrific punt this week. We'll see if everyone gets there. Patriots play the third most man coverage in the league. Mitchell actually leads the entire league with 43% of his targets against man coverage. So we've seen in the first 2 games as well, he stepped in the slot for Josh Downs whenever Josh Downs was going through that injury, 52% of his routes from there. And he earned 19.5% of the team's targets those 2 games with Anthony Richardson. So like A.D. Mitchell is a spin down. And then, yes, just for the Ravens secondary woes that Rich touched on, A.J. Brown, although we can't get to everyone, and I still may play Barkley depending on what the field is going to do with him. Because, again, when you're talking about the Eagles' offensive line versus the Ravens' run defense, I still would bet on the Eagles' offensive line the way they're playing right now. But A.J. Brown, for all the reasons Rich already mentioned, yes, he's in my pool to spend up for at wide receiver.
Mitchell 3.9 on DK, 5K on FanDuel. So certainly that could be worth a look. Rich, what do you got?
Yeah, I like A.D. Mitchell too, for the same reasons that Daigle had. And we've talked about, I mean, it's crazy because the pay up guys are all really good. I mean, obviously Daigle brought up Stroud, and Nico Collins is in an amazing spot. I mean, hashtag Jaguars. Just keep pumping those dudes out. Maybe Nico Collins will go a week without having a 60-yard touchdown called back. Maybe we'll get one. Maybe we'll let allow one to stand. Yeah. And we saw him jump back after again, the Dallas game. He ran around in 55% dropbacks. He's up to 80% last week. I imagine that's going to just continue to climb. Jaguars been terrible against wide receiver ones. Daigle brought up both Rams guys. Puka's been absolutely amazing since he came back. Saints have been flooded, especially since they lost Paulson Adebo and then traded Marshawn Lattimore. They've been getting absolutely crushed by wide receivers. So pick your flavor there. Play both. If you can fit them, it's a little tricky. And then Mike Evans still, I think you got to go back to him. So Mike Evans actually was going to play more until the Giants were terrible.
It seemed that way.
He was on the field for 73% of the dropbacks in the first quarter, 71% in the first half, and then 50% in the second half. Like they were just like, we're out of here. But we got what we wanted. He was targeted on 29% of his routes, 3.2 yards per route run. Like those are where we want it to be, especially for his rest of the season schedule. Carolina, 9.3% touchdown rate to lead wide receivers. It's a good spot, I think, to go back to him in Baker stacks and in those onslaughts. If we don't get like crappy weather in the Pittsburgh game, George Pickens is also a really good play. But these are all guys that are going to cost you, like fitting like all these guys in. They're all amazing plays this week.
That's why I didn't touch on more receivers. I kind of did so with the quarterbacks, and I'm just going to let my stacks condense my lineup this week because again, they're all good and I'm trying to double this thing up. So yeah, like, exactly where the targets are going to go. If you play Matthew Stafford, CJ Stroud, Baker Mayfield, you can get to the then expensive wide receivers.
Evans got a nice little discount too, down to 6.7. No Godwin, good matchup. And we're assuming he's going to be a full go. He looks pretty spectacular. You mentioned McConkey earlier, Rich. Yeah, the 9 targets is the most he's had all season. Yet to get a game where he said double the targets.
Just one time.
That's what makes that game interesting too, is that if it's going to be chalk game, like, can the Falcons fail? Of course they can. We've seen the Falcons fail for a couple weeks in a row now. So maybe out of their bye, it's a little bit better. Maybe the Chargers defense, it was solely because they hadn't been tested yet. Then they got tested for sure against the Ravens. But yeah, maybe the Chargers can still get there with Khalil Mack back in the lineup to Kirk Cousins and in that game script altogether.
Yeah, I mean, you're getting the Falcons like a supreme rest advantage because they're on bye, and you've had back-to-back primetime games for the Chargers traveling short week. So like they've got like the all-time rest advantage.
That it's absolutely a situation. I even saw it overnight Sunday where sharp bettors were coming in very early on that game, understanding the position the Chargers are in.
Also, I'm not sure if you said West Coast to East Coast, 1:00 as well.
Mm-hmm. I said this it's the all-time rest advantage layout.
Yeah. All right. Anything else as far as wide receivers, or shall we move on? We're expecting Devontae Smith back this week. I see he's projected. Is that certain, or that's just like
he did not do anything today? He was on the side field, so TBD on that.
Okay.
Oh, and then I don't want to. We didn't touch on this on running backs, and I don't want to poo-poo anyone's cheap guy, especially in a slate where we may have to play him just to unlock the rest. But it's like we talked about with James Conner last week. If Brees Hall's out and Braylon Allen's in. Braylon Allen honestly may just be the dude enough for nothing to matter. But the Seahawks defense, since they've gotten everyone back now these past 3 games, like they obviously shut down chalk James Conner, 7 carries for 8 yards. But as we talked about, Christian McCaffrey and Kyrie Williams before that, 3.1 yards per carry combined, no touchdowns. So the Seahawks could actually just be logically figuring it out underneath Mike McDonald this second half of the season.
The counterpoint is 5K. He's 5K
Right.
on DK and just volume, right?
I think
yeah.
5K is enough. Again, Braylon Allen may just be that dude and won't matter. 5K though is expensive enough to, especially with Bucky Irving.
What's he on FanDuel? Because that's where you would want to play him.
4K,
I'm checking right now.
4K like Tyrone Tracy did that week. I'd just lock him in, not care about it. I think 5K is questionable
FanDuel.
enough.
Oh, 5.3. Yeah, I mean,
It's pretty good.
yeah, it is
Pretty
really
usable.
pretty okay.
All right. Who wants to start with tight ends?
Just only Taysom. You just play Taysom is the only dude you play. Like you don't
play
even you play
Stafford,
no one else.
Cooper Kupp, Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua, Taysom Hill. There
I have
you
no
go.
idea what Taysom's price is, but it's not enough.
He's 5K on DK.
Not enough. Dude, no, we're not. So they were on bye, so this game did not get talked about enough. Like the game that Taysom, and we'll never have a game like this probably from him again for the rest of his career.
75-yard touchdown.
Dude,
Yeah.
seven carries for 138 yards and 3 touchdowns. He also lost a fumble. He had 8
And threw a pick.
He caught 8 of 10 targets. Dude, he had 10 targets in that game. He caught 8
It's a
of 10
record.
targets. He played a season high. He had a season high 55% of offensive snaps. He threw 2 passes. He also had a kickoff return for 42 yards. He played 8 snaps at quarterback. He played 7 in the backfield. He played 9 at inline tight end. He played 5 in the slot and 4 at wide receiver. Like it's the most bonker shit. Like it's the most ludicrous like box score and usage I've ever seen. And they asked Darren Rizzi this week, and he said, "Well, the workload is trending to where we want it to be." And it's like
Trending. But the only thing we don't talk about enough as far as Taysom, he's 34. Like he's supposed to be done. Like he's 34 years old.
Yeah, but he was like he did like a mission and stuff. Like he's
he got late starts, but still, like,
It's,
that's why he's sneaky old.
It's also now across 3 different coaches. Like we just thought he was Sean Payton's pet toy. It lasted the usage through
Hashtag get at the game.
Dennis Allen, and now it's lasting through Darren Rizzi. Darren Rizzi, by the way, is 2-0. Like this, and that's why they're not backing off this because Darren
That's why you
Rizzi's-
can't fire Doug Peterson. This is the shit. This is why. This is why you can't fire Doug Peterson.
I mean,
It's actually a great point.
I
No,
don't-
you
I
can't
think
because
it's
the interim
suckered in.
coach, we see it every year. Antonio Pierce did it last year. We talk about
Yeah.
Jeff Saturday. If you give a guy a chance to be head coach, he's going to try to do a good job.
we've also seen Mike McCoy be head coach, so it might not work, but he would try.
Seeing Hawkinson and Ertz, it's pretty flat as far as the early ownership here, John. Unless you got, I know we're talking
Imagine
about
clicking
Taysom.
Zach Ertz instead of Taysom Hill.
Well, he's 3.8, but yeah, I hear you. The salary, we do live in the world of a salary cap, but yeah, of course, you want to play Hill. Hawkinson 4.4. I guess he's back. I guess he's fine. Hawkinson, as far as the knee, I assume he's all the way back. Is that fair to say?
The pendulum has to swing back in favor of Justin Jefferson at some point, right? Like we can't expect
Yeah.
Justin Jefferson to just carry a 22% target share the rest of the year like he's had with Hawkinson.
Yeah, we didn't even talk about him, but certainly, I assume I'm not studying the all 22, but I assume the defenses are zoning in and saying, yeah, let's shut down this guy, and it's leaving stuff open for guys like Hawkinson and Addison. I would imagine. Tight ends not named Taysom, John. Did you have a long list? Do you have a list of one other guy? Hawkinson, Ertz, Hunter Henry, Disley.
Honestly, this slate, I was literally just going to let you tell me what I'm playing. I did talk about Cade Otton, how it's volatile, but yes, I'm very open to playing Cade Otton, especially if I play Baker. Yeah, it could be a 2 tight end slate where I'm just playing Otton and Taysom Hill.
And unfortunately,
I don't want to tell you. Go ahead, Rich.
I was gonna say the other guy that I was gonna back but missed practice today is Disley because Hunter Hurst got put on IR, but then Disley missed practice today. So just keep a pin in that. If we do get practices from Disley, he's obviously in play.
So the super early optimals. This is why I didn't want to say it. Like 54% Ertz, 32% Hawkinson, 2 tight ends hitting some optimals. Disley 25%, Henry 20%. It's all gross, but you're also getting Puka.
The tight ends have been awesome against tight ends too. So not. super excited to play Zach Ertz. Not super excited about the Commanders' offense either right now at this point.
It didn't work out.
We got there. I mean, you listen, like from a fantasy stance,
it did get there.
Jaden Daniels got there, but you can't feel good about the journey.
Why don't they just build the rest of the offense out of the last minute? Just do that. Just whatever they did the last minute, whatever the last 30 seconds. It's not. I mean, they kind of overachieved start of the season, but good story. Hopefully, they're still on the come up. All right, that's it, right? We're done. We're done with this. We gave you a net. Well, let's see.
An hour on Thanksgiving, 40 minutes on the very expensive main slate, and then whatever we do for a movie. I think that's people got their money's worth. This is a free show
on a Wednesday night.
On a Wednesday night where both of us jammed out our content like all within 48 hours.
I've never been as tired as I am this week.
I haven't slept. I have not fucking slept all week.
Well, if you can go for another 20
and it's funny is Daigle brought up Browns Broncos, and so I do the games kind of in order. So you get to it was in a row where I did Eagles Ravens and then 49ers Bills, like cool players, even though the 49ers are in like this weird spot. And then it's like I have to finish the whole worksheet up with Broncos Browns. It was just like so deflating. Like it was just such a come down.
It's the Costanza. You got to end on a high note. You got Jameis. You have Sutton. It's a lot of fun. Sort of, somewhat, maybe. We got TJ coming in, Rob coming in as well. Going to talk our weekly movie. TJ, of course, won last week. And if you guys don't want to listen to us talk about movies, understandable. Appreciate y'all listening. Hit that like button on your way out. Please subscribe. Yes, enjoy your Thanksgiving.
Not understand. Still enjoy your Thanksgiving.
Did you guys, just to make sure, because I'm going to listen to the first half of this show tomorrow morning on my walk with my dog. I just want to make sure you guys let everyone know that Jaden Reed's going for 30 tomorrow.
Oh, wow. It's a long walk, by the way. We're talking for an hour, just so you know.
Oddly enough, I think we talked about him the least of their options, but we also said he's the best play among their options. So that's the summary you need.
Fair. He's going for 30.
I think we were just like, if you want to play Jaden Reed, you know what you're getting from a ceiling perspective.
Yeah,
exactly.
Did you have a hot take, TJ, as far as the Thanksgiving slate? Your favorite play?
No, not really. I was using this as a kind of last minute first look for me kind of thing where I was building my pool and deciding how many lineups I was going to play as we go. So I've managed to narrow a pretty tight pool, but it's going along a lot of what you guys have said. I'm fading Drew Lock. Not fading Drew Lock. I'm fading Caleb Williams. And I think I'm actually going to fade St. Brown as well and focus on CeeDee Lamb as my most expensive wide receiver.
All right. Some bold takes. TJ, we should stick with you because you picked this week's movie. A bit of a pivot from our recent movies, for sure. Of late, we've watched Let the Right One In and The Substance and Blue Ruin, but TJ went for an upper, the musical, Tick, Tick, Boom.
It's not much of an upper.
Well, yeah, I guess, parts of it. But yeah, you're right. That's fair. I probably shouldn't call it that.
I had to spoiler warning for Tick Tick Boom, but the musical's been out for decades, so I wanted to take us out of the kind of gloomy and dark style movies we had, and then I realized as I was choosing it and as you were kind of describing it here as well, it's a movie about a guy who dies way too early and who spends all of his life focusing on certain things. So part of a little bit of an upper, especially at the beginning, but not totally an upper.
Do you have a synopsis for us, Dean?
Yeah, so it's funny. I just pulled up the synopsis on the Rotten Tomatoes synopsis is just too long. It's out of hand. It's just too much. So I'm going to go with the IMDb one. Remember now, this is the shorter one. The film follows John, a young theater composer who's waiting tables at a New York City diner in 1990 while writing what he hopes will be the next great American musical. Days before he's due to showcase his work in a make-it-or-break-it performance, John is feeling the pressure from everywhere, from his girlfriend Susan, who dreams of an artistic life beyond New York City, from his friend Michael, who has moved on from his dream to a life of financial security, amidst an artistic community being ravaged by the AIDS epidemic. With the clock ticking, John is at a crossroads and faces the question everyone must reckon with: what are we meant to do with the time we have? All right. And again, that was the shorter Rotten Tomatoes lost its mind. It's like 2 more paragraphs or something like that. But yeah, I went to this movie totally cold. I don't know about you guys. I mean, I thought it was about the guy. I didn't know. I knew it was a musical, and I thought it was about the guy who wrote Rent. And it turns out I was right. It took me a while to get there. Like, well, are we going to get the Rent at some point? We got to at some point. Yeah. But TJ, you want to tell, I guess, anything else you want to say as far as why we picked this, or shall we just open it up and see what everybody thinks?
Yeah, it was my first win of the season, which admit I'm a little embarrassed to say. I thought I was going to do better than that, but I'm playing with some elite players, so I do understand. But I wanted to pick one of my favorite movies ever, and a lot of people expected me to pick a comic book movie. But the tough thing with that is I knew like Rob, Rich, and Daigle would have probably seen the majority of comic book movies I would have picked anyways. This is truly, like, most of my favorite movies are comic book movies just because that's the genre I love. But this is one of my favorite movies that I never expected to be one of my favorite movies. Like, I'm fairly neutral towards musicals, and I just decided to watch this because I liked Andrew Garfield, and that was about it. And I just fell in love with the movie, fell in love with the music, even though it doesn't explicitly touch on mental health like anxiety and ADHD, things like that. The way it portrayed it in the characters just really spoke to how I feel it goes on within my brain, and it just felt very relatable to me, and it quickly became one of my favorite movies ever. And despite how it is like kind of a downer for lots of the parts, it's weirdly still become a comfort movie for me.
It doesn't speak directly on those things, but it does speak to those things. It highlights them. It shows them throughout, for sure.
I want to hear Rob's take. I really want to hear Rob's take, but I want to delay that for just for a second. He's the one I'm most interesting to get the take.
You know who the main event is for this one. Yeah. Good host.
I want to delay that because I feel like he's going to have the most interesting opinion. John,
a couple other things I want to lay out. Andrew Garfield got nominated for Best Actor in the Oscars for this one. It won a Golden Globe for Best Musical or Comedy. He won the Best Actor for Best Musical or Comedy. And I got to interview Michael, the supporting character, for another project he was in, that for the Agents of Fandom. That was really cool. It's also Lin-Manuel Miranda's directorial debut.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was not aware that he directed it, but of course he's a big name. Rich, your thoughts?
Yeah, I didn't get to rewatch this for worksheet running late, and then me admitting to you guys that it's still only on Netflix, and I don't have Netflix.
What is the demographic that doesn't watch the Red Zone channel and doesn't have Netflix? The Venn diagram is like Rich in the middle of the circles.
Yeah. There was a point, I think it was probably like 6 or 7 months ago. Like, I just asked everyone in my house, I was like, what are you watching on Netflix? And nobody had an answer, and I was like, why do I have this then? And
you didn't get to watch the Mike Tyson fight?
And so so I had a buddy over, and we just used his. I just watched his. So
you're not caught up on Cobra Kai. What are we doing here, Rich?
I was literally just gonna make.
If they do drop something, I do want to watch. There's a couple shows I do want to watch. Arcane, right? Like I do.
I was gonna say, you seem like you'd be an Arcane guy.
I know. I do want to watch Arcane. So like maybe I'll pick it back up. But
you have watched the movie. You have seen the movie though.
I have seen the movie though. When it first came out, I was excited to watch it. So. I'm like the last few years of my life have gotten really into theater. My daughter is a theater kid, and like this movie obviously is a love letter to theater, which is fun. But I also like that this movie is literally about like getting denied like for the one thing you want to do. Like, that's like in like, TJ kind of hinted on it. It's like, it was almost like an obsession, but I love it because when you're a parent, or when we grew up, you're told like, be anything you want to be, right? Be like Mike, all the ads that we saw. And it really isn't a true
musical theater, Scott.
That's
one of my favorite lines in the movie when they're having the party and they have like the finance guy come over and he's like, so what is it that you do? The future of musical theater, Scott. And then he just walks away. It's one of my favorite lines in the movie.
But I do love that it's like, just that constant denial, because not everyone gets to do what they want in life. I know that this obviously gets to the point where like he did get that, but obviously didn't get to experience it. Because he died before Rent. I think it was the day before it debuted.
That's what they said in the movie. I don't know how true that was. I assume it was true.
I don't remember
the day before.
But Andrew Garfield's absolutely delightful in this movie. I don't know if you guys have seen the real guy that he's playing.
I have.
They show it in the credits. They show him in the credits.
He
I
is
assume
like
that's the real guy.
absolutely spot on. Like him doing the songs, like the 3090 song. Like if you watch the actual video of that dude doing it in the 90s, like I mean, it's like Andrew Garfield was that dude. Like absolutely, like spot on.
And he learned to sing and dance for this. Sorry, to sing.
Oh
and play
yeah,
piano
like his friend, I forget who it was that like pitched Lin-Manuel getting him the gig, and Lin-Manuel was like, well, can he sing? And the dude was like, yeah, he's amazing, and he had never done it, but he actually had a Tony before this. Andrew Garfield, he had a Tony before he did this movie. So like,
and did you know the musical he won the Tony Award for?
It's that like 8 hour.
It's 8 hour. It's 8 hours long.
Yeah, it's an 8 hour. It's an 8 hour theater production. Yeah. But he has a Tony, so like I like that he already has a Tony, and that it was obviously this love letter by Lin-Manuel to theater, and then going back to that. But I understand that is probably not for everybody.
Do we know if that was recorded live as far as the singing? I think traditionally they don't do that, right? But do we know this, TJ? Was the music was the singing live, or is it kind of dubbed over?
I assume it was probably dubbed over for the scenes, but I'm guessing I don't think that was their live voices that like during the movie, but it is the actors who recorded all of, like, it is them singing all of the songs.
I think it's just a typical music video, right?
That's what I figured.
Yeah, they're acting.
But like you can tell, and like so, like very specifically the song "Therapy" when they perform that one, where it's Vanessa Hudgens and Andrew Garfield on the chairs, and they like are like looking back and forth at each other. You can tell very clearly they are belting their hearts out. It's just not that audio that we're hearing.
This also made me want to watch.
As a side note,
I also wanted to go.
Yes,
felt like watching the Bo Burnham.
Bo Burnham came to mind like whenever I first saw this. Like I thought, one, I forgot Andrew Garfield is an actual actor, not just Spider-Man. I was like, oh yeah, I forgot he's really good at his job. He's not just this character. And two, this has Bo Burnham helping out. He didn't help out, but it has Bo Burnham all over it.
So Rob, we teased it. Sometimes you surprise us. So I'm curious. I'm going to assume, I don't want to be presumptuous, but I kind of sort of am. I feel like you're not a musical theater guy. You tell me.
I'm not, which is funny because I think I said this last week. I'm seeing a girl that works at the Opera House. Like that's her gig. But I was at a Friendsgiving and I had to leave the Friendsgiving because TJ said something and I had to make sure I was here to make sure that everyone knows that it was bullshit. He said that this is a top 10 movie of the decade, which is laughably wrong.
I did not say top 10. I said one of the best.
Oh, well, also wrong. So
what's the difference between top 10 and one of the best? That's basically the same thing.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Of its genre, it is undeniably top 3 to 5 of the decade.
Yeah,
now you're saying genre. It's a different conversation.
3 to 5 musicals that have come out this decade, so it's like
and it transcended it and got him nominated for Best Actor. Tons and tons of awards.
It's like saying Daniel Jones is a top 40 quarterback in the league.
One of the best of
questionable
of the 2000s.
By default, I mean, like, listen, if Andrew Garfield crying is your kink, boy, is this the movie for you. Because I don't know if there's a scene in this movie that he's not crying. Like, he was
not
good.
Everyone is heartless and only likes dark horror. Some people have emotions, Rob.
Sometimes there's too much emotions in a movie that will make you nullify those feelings. So I thought he was doing a really good job, but it was consistently him crying. And you're just like, all right, dude, well, fucking do something about it. Sorry for the swearing, but it's just like, dude, what are we doing here? I thought the first hour of this movie was a complete mess. One of my biggest problems with musicals is we applaud musicals for overacting, where with any other genre of movie, when they overact, we lambast them. And I hate that. I think that musicals need to try to do something different than try to be what the production on the stage was. So that was a big problem for me. Always will be with musicals. Looks like Wicked doesn't have that same problem, right? I haven't watched it yet. You know, I will end up seeing that movie. Second half of the movie is much better. Well, second half of this movie was much better than the first half of this movie. The scene that you were just talking about on the rooftop was a phenomenal scene. They really did that musical number well. I thought that the acting in that scene was great. They had a few parts like that, but some of the overacting, even when they're not doing the musical in this movie, was just unbelievably.
Well, that's
awful.
because it's a movie about theater people, and that's how like theater people overact in their daily life when they're not on stage.
Then they shouldn't
That's
be
how
actors.
theater people are.
Then they shouldn't know. Then they shouldn't be actors if they're constantly overacting. The whole point is
No,
to
I'm
not
saying
overact.
the extra, what's the word I'm looking for here? Personality, essentially, is just how they are. Like, it's not overacting, it's how people in that genre of field are as people.
I don't think so. Not in some of these situations
Extra,
that they were
very
portraying. Yeah. Well, the score is not going to get extra high for me, is what I will say, because it's like fine. It's watchable. It's shot well, I guess. I just didn't love it. I didn't love the diner scene was awful. Like the diner scene. The diner,
the diner scene was a bit excessive because it was an ode to musicals. Like, you know, if you've
that
seen
one, just
Cowboys,
like all the cameos were incredibly famous stage.
you recognize
It was literally Avengers Endgame for theater.
Yeah, but
exactly.
only for theater, to the point
Very
where
fan servicey for theater people.
Yeah, to the point it may have been too excessive.
It was too. That scene especially was too excessive. I just like it's watchable. It's definitely 20 minutes too long. There's definitely too much crying. There's definitely not enough acting. The pool scene was really good too. I enjoyed the way that one unfolded. I thought that was a really well done scene. There is some redeemable parts of this movie overall. I think they're a little sloppy with some of their messages throughout it, and they don't focus on a few of them enough, and you don't get a lot of resolution on a couple of them. So I'm meh on it. Meh.
It's the best movie in the last 200 years.
This isn't even the best movie in the 1870s. And I don't even think film was invented yet.
Charlie Chaplin wasn't even born yet, I don't think.
Funny you say that. I just did a celebrity ghost story on Charlie Chaplin.
I just found a list of the 10 best musicals of the 2020s, and Tick Tick Boom is number 2 for the record. Number 1, West Side Story. West Side Story, number 1.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, I don't know if you want to take any umbrage with that or not, but it is number 2. Encanto, Color Purple. A lot of remakes.
Also, Lin-Manuel Miranda was
also Lin-Manuel.
Wonka. Is it all remakes? Everything is a remake, right?
Society.
Django, A Christmas Journey.
Yeah,
Don't know what that is.
Yeah, this is my point of why
there's no original IP.
They're really padding out the list here. The Little Mermaid, another original idea.
So it took something that's really hard to do and make a good movie out and made a Oscar contending movie. That sounds pretty good to me.
Dick's the Musical, number 10 for the record. I know you were curious. What's number 10? Dick's the Musical.
This is my point. This is why it's in the top 10 by default. Because Dick's the Musical is there. That's at the strip club down the street right now if anyone else wants to go see it.
That's because there are so few musicals worthy of adaptation because it's so tough to do, and they mastered it.
I did not hate this movie as much as Rob appears to have hated. Oh, he liked some of the stuff. I do have a bias against musicals. I don't like when somebody sings their point. You know, I understand it's a genre, but just tell me. You can just tell me. You don't have to sing it. Like the singing in the library, the singing in the diner. That's not really from. But I recognize it was a well-produced. I thought the scene was really good. You were talking about the therapy scene where they kind of overlap the actual conversation. TJ, I thought that was really, really good. That was one of the better scenes and the better songs in this movie. So I did enjoy that. One thing I want to forget. I don't want to forget about. So I apologize for cutting you off, but I did forget about it when I was mentioning it. Is I thought it was super cool how his Superbia production that nobody wanted, nobody understood, even the actors that were on, was about how the future is going to look, right? And it's talking about how we're going to spend all of our time staring at a little screen in our hands as our day-to-day life and only caring about what the most popular people in the world look like and are doing all the time. I thought that was very incredible because that's not a remade thing for the movie. That was his actual production he was trying to get made. Yeah, it was strange because I'm like, I never heard of this. So I'm like, it must bomb. I guess it's not going to be a thing. And I guess it just never really happened. A couple random actors that just popped up. Like they didn't really use them, but Bradley Whitford was in there in like a
Bradley
weird.
Whitford.
he had this beard and like the same expression over it. It was very strange. And then Judith Light. If you're old enough, you remember Who's the Boss? And I think now she does like Lifetime movies, so like Abuse, I'm guessing. She's still doing her thing, but Judith Light made an appearance. Is she a thing now? Is she making a comeback? Is she in theater? I don't know. But good to see. TJ, you have the backstory on Judith Light?
No, I was going to comment on Whitford. Is like they couldn't add him too much because he kind of had to be this mysterious, godlike role because Stephen Sondheim is like the goat of musicals.
Okay, so I don't like. So it's based on a real
The
person.
guy he was playing was the Scorsese or essentially of musicals.
Okay, fair enough. Anything else we want to say as far as this movie?
I didn't talk about it yet. I didn't say my.
Oh,
opinion.
I'm sorry, John. I threw it to you, and I think we got sidetracked. But go ahead.
Well, it's also not fair because I love musicals. I even, I complained about being tired, but then I also found time to step away last night because I won the lottery to the Chicago Broadway. And so I got a front row seat to Die Hard, the poetry parody. And it was literally one guy on stage for an hour and a half portraying every character from Die Hard, changing costumes, and he made it all rhyme like slam poetry, like Hamilton. It was incredible. Like there were
I'm picturing this all as Jake Peralta from Brooklyn Nine-Nine, like doing this. That's how I'm picturing it in my head.
He even ended barefooted with a sleeveless bloody t-shirt on. Like it was wild. All one person too. So that was incredible. So yeah, I love
not to stop you, but there's a lottery. It sounds so niche. It sounds amazing. I should say that.
Yeah, you don't have you don't go like your local comedy show and like put your name in like a thing.
But there's a lottery to see this. There's people that are lining up to see Die Hard.
It's Broadway.
Okay. I didn't think there was a big audience for this. That's awesome. I'm glad.
There's a big audience for if you're into something, you can find a big enough audience for it. But it's Broadway. Like Chicago's one of the biggest theater cities in America. So yeah, of course. But yeah, and it was at one of the smaller ones, the Water Tower Palace. But yeah, it was amazing. It was Die Hard, literally, but in poetry form. It was great.
That's awesome.
And so yes, it's not only that aspect that I love musicals, theater, but also this kind of to a lesser extent, I understand. But this is kind of what like we go through as we're not artists. And some people who take themselves more seriously, like it's funny to think about in our job that someone would consider themselves like a true artist. But like, this is kind of what we go through in the creative sphere, that like you go through mental health issues, you go through the troubles behind the scenes. Like, yeah, like kind of what we're going through this week with having to turn everything around in 48 hours. Like these kind of emotions happen. And so I think that aspect, we click with it. I'm personally as well. No one knows this. I haven't even told Rich this yet, but like my birthday's next week and I'm currently in the middle of a midlife crisis. Like, dude, I'm going through it where I'm questioning my own, like what am I? I can't even describe it well, but like I'm mentally going through it right now just because I don't understand what my purpose. That's what I'm looking for. I'm not sure about my purpose just yet. Or like if I'm content with what's going on with everything in my life right now. Like, is this what's going to be the next 40 years as well? And so I think seeing this movie at this time of my life, like was very eye-opening. It's exactly what's happening right now. So yeah, I thought it was good. I thought it portrayed that really well.
Happy early birthday, by the way, John.
Yeah, not to bring it down. I was completely negative about that.
Listen, we needed that person in the chat that lets you know it's your birthday for every. Hopefully, they're here next week.
It is. I didn't bring it up because of that, but it is. Yeah. It is next week on Thursday, and I'm going through it at the moment. Yeah.
Is it a round number or something, or is that not okay? It's not that. Okay.
If you moved to Ohio, this would change.
Yeah, probably. No.
Game night on Fridays.
I know.
If you want to solve this, all you have to do is find a piano in the middle of a park in the rain and start singing to nobody, ruining somebody's piano, by the way, that put it out there so that no one else can play it ever again.
I did like that therapy song, though. That was a good song.
Yeah. I like to go in at the 30 song, too.
Yeah.
I mean, that's my go-to karaoke jam. Are
you even 30? Are you 30 yet, TJ?
I'm 31, yeah. So I sang that at my 30th birthday.
It sounds like a new rite of passage. Yeah, that works perfectly.
Yeah.
All right. John, anything else you want to say as far as this movie? Rich, Rob, TJ?
No, but I love that we have double the viewers for our movie portion than we did for our Thanksgiving slate portion. I find that
Did
absolutely
we really?
hilarious. Yep.
You spoke about Venn diagrams. Venn diagrams are people that like are really passionate about DFS and fantasy football, and tick tick boom. Probably not the strongest. Probably not the
Stop talking
strongest
about football and start talking about the musical. Damn it!
There's a fun like comic book sports people like diagram, because like Venn diagram as I got into the industry and I meet people like I like saw Rich with like the Spider-Man background in one of our very first shows together, and I've had Rob on the podcast to talk about Marvel and DC movies. And then one of my like, before I even started working here during the pandemic, I started listening to a podcast called the Direct Podcast, where it's very similar to mine, at Agents of Fandom, where we talk about these different movies and TV shows that come out and the news within the comic book movie sphere. And I find out as we both grow in our fantasy sports fields that Matt Remke works at Action Network as a graphic designer who hosts that podcast. So it's like the Venn diagram of people in that specific sphere of fantasy sports and loving comic book stuff is actually a lot of people filling into it.
I mean, listen, nerds are gonna nerd,
Yeah.
and that's the thing you learn when you go to like the expo or you go to these things, like that common ground. You're like, yeah, there's a reason why we all overlap.
All right, let's go ahead and put a score on it. We'll put a score on it. No, before we put a score on it, we have to actually predict what the IMDb score actually is. 1 through 10. Rich, you go first. What is the IMDb score of Tick Tick Boom?
I'll say flat 7.
Flat 7. John?
Price is Right, 7-1.
Well, there's 2 behind you, so it's always a risky move. The Price is Right with 2 on the waiting.
First to do Price is Right, 7-1.
Rob?
All right. Well, this is a genre movie, so all the theater nerds probably went and put stuff on it. I'm gonna say it's a 7-4.
Can't wait to act this way. The next horror movie I gotta watch. Well, this is a genre movie.
I want to hear Rob and TJ just do more of that.
I want their podcast. When does the Rob and TJ podcast start?
Hey, we've been on together lots on the Agents of Fandom one, so check it out. Check it out over there. Sorry, continue. Whose turn is it?
Yours.
Your turn. 7-4 was the last number. 7, 7-1, and 7-4, I believe, are thrown out there.
Let's go 7-5.
Well, TJ, the answer is 7-5. So let's see if we can get that momentum going. TJ binks it. Rotten Tomatoes. I want both the critics and I want the audience. Give me both numbers, TJ.
Well, as much as I just was like, and crapped on his take, I do think the audience score for this one will likely be a lot higher, because since it is a genre movie, there'll be people who like it typically who are going to be reviewing it. Whereas critics, it was one of the most highly anticipated movies of that quarter of the year. And so everybody was kind of having to watch it. And so a lot of people who don't like that stuff would still be reviewing it. So I'll go 89% audience, or sorry, critics, 97 audience.
89 and 97. Rob, what do you got?
Critics were definitely smelling their own farts when they reviewed this one. So
More
this
than
is
89%?
95% for critics. I actually think the audience is going to be lower. I'm going to go 95 for critics and 91 for audience.
John?
Gosh, we're all just going to log jam around the 90s, I know, because that's the right answer somewhere in there. So someone's got to get this exactly right and have the optimal.
You got a game theory. I mean, you got a game theory.
Optimal.
Okay, so yeah, let's go 93 critics and 89 fans. Audience.
Rich.
I'm just going to say 90-90.
Nobody flat out banked it. You guys are on the crab. 87% for the critics, 222 critics, 87%. Audience, 96%. The audience love this. Rob definitely did not review it. He did not submit a review.
I'll fix that in 1 second.
Okay, hold on. 94% audience. We just got a new hit refresh. It's dipping as we speak. Okay, let's give it a review. TJ, this is your movie. You have a gimmick you gave yourself. I assume you're prepared to put a score on it with a particular action hero.
0 chance.
Rich, help me out. You know who I picked.
I told you 0 chance.
You know what character this has got to be.
This? No, I don't know who you're going with this. Where are you going?
This is Spider-Man. This is undoubtedly Spider-Man. My favorite superhero. Who plays him in live action?
Like a singer.
It's Andrew Garfield. And Spider-Man's my favorite superhero. This is one of my favorite movies. This is a Spider-Man.
Blasphemy. This is The Tick.
I love it.
I thought people liked The Tick. Is that an insult? I thought people were fans of The Tick.
I watched the cartoon show.
Yeah. What was the guy from Patrick Warburton many years ago? That was the live action, the Seinfeld guy? I think that was a thing. Rob, 1 through 5, what do you got?
2 Andrew Garfield tears out of 5.
2 out of 5. Rich, you have a tight end for us?
Yeah, I'm giving this a Mark Andrews Garfield.
Took me a second. There.
I tried to find like a singing correlated tight end, and the closest I could get was Jake Ballard. It just wasn't fit. I couldn't make anything work. So then I was trying to do Andrews, and then surprisingly, there's a lot of bad Andrews tight ends, and there's like Andrews Corliss and like these. I was like, so it was like this is the best I could do. There was no Garfields either. So if
only kickers were your gimmick, because you could have went Justin Tucker, who's famously a singer. I don't know, soprano, no, not a soprano. I don't alto. I'm not sure. Tenor, couldn't tell you. Daigle, you got a wrestler, right?
Of course, every single week. Could have been a lot of options. Gold Dust was an honorable mention. Came close. Could have gone the superhero route with Hurricane Helms, but that's a little too wacky for this one. So I think I pinpointed it in wrestler who didn't get to really stretch his creative chops while he was in WWE. There was a famous scene where he's in a love triangle because Edge broke up with Lita, his real life girlfriend at the time. And then this guy got with Lita, and they wrote in a story where he would hypothetically, although they were under a bed cover, like have sex in the ring in front of Edge. Like this.
I remember that.
This is the whole thing. And so not too creative, but when Matt Hardy got released and then went to TNA, they allowed him to do whatever the hell he wanted because he was still part of the Hardy brothers and he was going solo. And so what he did, he created his own personality where he became Broken Matt, and he was going crazy because he was an aging wrestler. And then that also became the Broken World, where he then starts introducing different characters, including his son, who is like going to be the king. He's the prince at the time to the Broken Kingdom. And he was the one who invented recorded matches. He was the first one where they actually did it ahead of time and added in graphics and like special moments where he's coming back to life, even though he was killed. Like they created a movie for a wrestling match and then played them live during special events. So yes, this movie, in my opinion, is Matt Hardy.
Yeah, that actually is perfect.
Favorite ranking that I've gotten so far of any of our like choices so far. I have one out of all of my figures and things in here. I have one wrestling figure, and it's Jeff Hardy, because the Hardy Boys were my two favorite wrestlers as a kid.
Well, Broken Matt Hardy works really well, because when I watched this movie, I also wanted to delete. So,
Dean, that was Broken Matt Hardy saying, because he was trying to delete society. So his thing is delete.
I thought for sure we are going to get a tick tick boo out of Coakley at some point. We did not get that, but it was right there. It was right there, Rob.
No, that's a joke that this movie would have made. I'm not as hacky as this one.
I will give it. I respect the genre. It's not necessarily for me. Garfield was awesome. He was very, very good. Awards were warranted. Not something I'm going to watch again, but for what it was fine. I liked it more than I expected. I went in like, okay, we'll watch this movie, and I thought, I just thought the story was fine. Do we need the singing? Do we have to sing? But yeah, I will give it. I rank out of 100, of course. I will give it.
Still my favorite of all.
I'll give it 55 out of 100. 55 out of 100. A respectable 55 out of 100. I won this last week. I've been wanting to watch My Old Ass, the Aubrey Plaza movie. It's on Amazon Prime, but I want to give Daigle an early birthday present because he told us, Daigle said that his favorite actor, one of his favorite actors, is Paul Giamatti. Mm-hmm. And somehow, I don't know, you've never seen American Splendor. And American Splendor, the role he plays, the Harvey Pekar role, might be the most Paul Giamatti's ever been. I think it's also a comic book movie, not a traditional comic book movie, but it is kind of a comic book movie. So kind of sort of a treat for TJ as well. Daigle, you said for sure. I feel like we had this conversation either on air or off air. You've never seen American Splendor, correct?
I never have. No.
Well, there you go. Another movie based on a true story. This is a new theme we're doing right now, but that's what we're watching, American Splendor. And I think if my Google is correct, it's streaming on Max. I want to confirm that, but I believe it is streaming on Max. Has anybody seen American Splendor? I think Rich, you said you had, right? But many, many years ago.
I saw it like 2004 when it came out. I definitely need to watch it again.
Okay. Side note, the Twitter algorithm targets me for like famous movie clips for who knows what rabbit hole I was going down. And so past my feed the other day, I did see one I stopped down for. It is the famous "I am not drinking any fucking Merlot" line from Sideways.
Yeah, that's what a spectacular movie, spectacular scene. Is that when you fell in love with Paul Giamatti? Was that the scene? Was that the moment? Could have been.
No, I think it was probably one
Big
of his
Fat Liar.
No, it was definitely not Big Fat Liar.
That's my favorite Paul Giamatti role. I love that as a kid. I saw that in the theater as a small child. Loved it.
Well,
we've done a couple of Giamatti movies though, haven't we?
We did The Holdovers, didn't we?
Mm-hmm.
No, we did Sideways. We did Shoot 'Em Up. He's in that.
Shoot 'Em Up may have been it.
Yeah.
Shoot 'Em Up.
I think we all probably watched Holdovers on our own. I've watched Holdovers as well.
I remember we did Shoot 'Em Up last year though.
I feel like we might have
movie.
Ended up somehow spiraling into talking about holdovers for a little bit on a podcast because Daigle, I have that memory of chatting about it too.
Yeah, it also came out around the holidays because it's a holiday movie, so maybe I just watched it then.
Well, boys, you better win this weekend because if I win, the following week is a Friday the 13th week. So you know what's coming.
We got to bring our game. We got to bring our game.
You know what's coming if I win this weekend.
I can't play Derek Carr. Got to take this seriously.
You got to take it seriously. We got to step our game up. There's real consequences here, boys. There's real consequences. We got to do our best to win this contest. And I'm really, really curious to hear what Daigle has to say about American Splendor. TJ as well. And I think Rich and Rob will like. I haven't seen it in forever as well. Also, another tie-in as far as the show, Rich. Cleveland, right? It's a Cleveland tie-in for American Splendor. So there you go.
And listen, they already shot the new Superman here. So.
There you go. We'll be reviewing that maybe in a couple of years.
TJ will definitely be reviewing it.
If nothing else, TJ will be reviewing it, I would imagine.
Yeah,
but,
I tuned up for a second. What were we talking about that I'm reviewing?
New Superman movie that was shot in Cleveland.
Oh yeah, that's going to be big priority. I have a buddy who goes to University of Cincinnati right now. Where they were filming portions of that, and so he had some fun look-ins as that happening. But yeah, we'll be reviewing that one. We got a lot of fun movie stuff going on right now for Agents of Fandom. On the podcast last week, we drafted our top movies and TV shows of 2024. This week is our Glicked review. We're got people on for Gladiator 2 and for Wicked, and then I just watched the first 3 episodes of Skeleton Crew today, the next Star Wars show. So that's next on the docket.
You got to invite Rob on the show when next time you're drafting favorite movies of the year, because it's.
I asked them. I
had to work.
It'll be like the beat writers that vote for Jamal Crawford for MVP. Like Rob will be in there one poll voting.
It was funny this week because the juxtaposition of the movies I had to review this week. I had to review Tick Tick Boom, and I had to review Terrifier 3. So it's just
that's great.
If you want to
Terrifier
talk about
3 was drafted in our draft. You would have hated some of the other picks though. There was Hitman, there was Fall Guy, just movies that I know you didn't like Hitman, and I feel like you might not have liked Fall Guy either.
I don't know if I saw.
All right, we were here for 2 hours and 20 minutes. We do appreciate y'all. Again, enjoy your Thanksgiving. John Daigle, Establish the Run, Rich Hribar, Sharp Football Analysis, Rob, Hometown Ghost Stories. We have TJ as well, of course, from Agents of Fandom. I was Dean. Go win something. Good luck this week. We're out of here. Oh!